Welcome back to another deep dive into the rich and haunting world of Elden Ring. I'm your host, and tonight we're embarking on a journey into the shadow of the Erdtree, where secrets darker than the deepest abyss await our discovery. If you're new here and love these extensive lore explorations, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It truly helps more than you might think and allows me to continue bringing you these immersive tales from gaming's most fascinating worlds. Tonight we delve into one of the most enigmatic and tragic figures introduced in Shadow of the Erdtree, Count Ymir. Ymir, the High Priest of Manus Metyr. Manus. His story is one of brilliance corrupted by grief, of cosmic ambition twisted into something both beautiful and horrifying. Over the next few hours we'll uncover how a renowned glintstone sorcerer became the mother of fingers, how love for a lost child drove him to challenge the very foundations of reality, and how his quest for understanding led him down a path that would blur the lines between devotion and madness. So settle in, get comfortable, and let me paint for you the complete story of Count Ymir, scholar, teacher, father, and ultimately something far beyond human comprehension. Chapter 1. The Golden Age Scholar. Long before the shattering tore the lands between asunder, before the demigods turned brother against sister in their catastrophic war, there lived a man whose brilliance illuminated the halls of learning like a star against the night sky. Count Ymir was not merely a sorcerer, he was a master of glintstone magic, a scholar whose understanding of the cosmos transcended the ordinary limitations of mortal comprehension. In those days, when Queen Marika, the Eternal, still held the Elden Ring intact, and the Golden Order cast its blessing across the realm, Ymir served the Carian royal family with distinction. The Academy of Raya Lucaria, had not yet fallen into the decline that would mark its later years. Magic flowed freely through its halls, and the greatest minds of the age gathered to unlock the secrets of the stars themselves. Ymir's reputation preceded him wherever he went. With a wizened hand that seemed to channel the very essence of glintstone power, he could weave spells that made the impossible seem mundane. His students would often find him in the Academy's highest towers, gazing through crystalline telescopes at the celestial dance overhead, his fingers tracing constellation patterns in the air as he spoke of cosmic romance and stellar wisdom. One need only envision the romance of the stars above, he would tell his pupils, his voice carrying the weight of years spent contemplating the infinite. The stars to Ymir were not merely distant lights in the darkness, they were living entities, cosmic beings whose movements told stories, older than the Erdtree itself. Each constellation held meaning, each planetary alignment spoke of fate and possibility. It was during the reign of Elden Lord Godfrey that Ymir's talents found their greatest expression. The first Elden Lord, that mighty warrior king, whose conquests had expanded the Golden Order's reach to every corner of the known world, valued wisdom as much as strength. Under his rule, scholars like Ymir flourished, their research and magical innovations contributing to an age of unprecedented prosperity and discovery. Among Ymir's most distinguished students was Rillana, who would later become known as the Twin Moon Knight. The young sorceress possessed a rare combination of martial prowess and magical aptitude that caught Ymir's attention immediately. Where other instructors saw only her skill with blade and spell, Ymir recognized something deeper, a connection to the lunar forces that resonated with his own understanding of celestial power. Under Ymir's tutelage, Rillana learned to see beyond the simple mechanics of glintstone sorcery. He taught her that magic was not merely about channeling power, but about understanding the fundamental relationships that bound all things together. The moon, he explained, was far more than the closest celestial body to their world. It was a gateway to understanding the greater cosmic order that governed all existence. The moon is not merely rock and shadow, Ymir would tell her during their evening lessons, when Luna's silver light streamed through the Academy's crystal windows. It is a lens through which we glimpse the true nature of reality. Through its phases, we see the eternal dance of creation and destruction, the endless cycle that drives all life. These lessons took place in Ymir's private observatory, a chamber he had constructed at the Academy's highest point. The room was a marvel of both magical and architectural engineering, its domed ceiling inlaid with countless tiny gems that mirrored the star patterns visible in the night sky. At the chamber's center stood a massive telescope, its brass fittings gleaming with enchantments that allowed it to peer not just across vast distances, but through the very fabric of space itself. R'lyana would later carry these teachings with her when she departed for the Shadowlands, though she would ultimately choose a different path from her mentor, where Ymir sought to understand the cosmic order through study and contemplation. She would pursue understanding through action and experience. Their parting was amicable, marked by mutual respect and genuine affection between teacher and student. Yet even as R'lyana prepared for her own journey, Ymir's attention was already turning toward mysteries that lay beyond conventional magical study. The stars had begun whispering to him of secrets hidden in the depths of the earth, of ancient powers that predated even the Erdtree's arrival in the lands between. His research led him to texts that spoke of finger ruins, of lamprey-like creatures that dwelt in cosmic caverns, and of a primordial mother whose influence had shaped the very foundations of their world. The other sorcerers at Raya Lucaria began to notice changes in their esteemed colleague. Where once Ymir had been gregarious and eager to share his discoveries, he became increasingly withdrawn, spending days at a time locked in his observatory. His lessons grew more esoteric, filled with references to cosmic entities and stellar influences that even his most advanced students struggled to comprehend. Some whispered that the aging scholar was losing his grip on reality, that his prolonged exposure to celestial energies had begun to affect his mind. Others, more charitable, suggested that he had simply progressed beyond their ability to follow, that his understanding of the cosmos had grown so profound that ordinary discourse could no longer contain it. The truth, as it often is, lay somewhere between these extremes. From der Statist, Ymir had indeed touched upon knowledge that challenged the foundations of conventional understanding, but he remained as rational and methodical as ever. If anything, his growing obsession with cosmic mysteries reflected not madness, but a scholar's natural progression toward ever deeper levels of comprehension. It was during this period that Ymir first encountered references to the two fingers and their mysterious guidance of mortal affairs. The orthodox teachings of the Golden Order presented the fingers as divine messengers, conduits through which the greater will expressed its intentions for the world. But Ymir's research suggested a more complex reality, one in which the fingers themselves were merely servants of powers even greater and more alien than previously imagined. This discovery would prove to be the first step on a path that would eventually lead him far from the academic halls of Raya Lucaria, towards secrets hidden in the Shadowlands, beyond the veil of ordinary reality. But before that journey could begin, fate would intervene in the form of love, loss, and a grief so profound that it would reshape not only Ymir's understanding of the cosmos, but his very relationship to the fundamental forces of creation itself. Chapter 2. The Father's Love. Beyond the towers and laboratories of Raya Lucaria, beyond the dusty tomes and crystalline instruments that had defined his professional life, Count Ymir discovered a joy that no amount of scholarly achievement could have prepared him for. In the quiet moments between his research, in the gentle spaces carved out from his pursuit of cosmic understanding, he found himself transformed by the simple miracle of fatherhood. Yuri was born during the height of Ymir's academic career, when his reputation as a master sorcerer had reached its zenith. The child arrived like an unexpected gift from the cosmos itself, a small miracle that brought warmth and wonder into chambers that had grown cold with the pursuit of ever more abstract knowledge. Where Ymir had once found fulfillment in unraveling the mysteries of stellar motion and gravitational forces, he now discovered equal fascination in his son's first attempts at speech, in the gradual development of thought and personality that marked the emergence of a unique individual. The transformation in Ymir was remarkable to behold. Colleagues who had grown accustomed to his increasing withdrawal from academy social life were surprised to find him sharing stories of his son's latest achievements with an enthusiasm that rivaled his passion for glintstone research. The observatory that had once been his exclusive sanctuary became a shared space, where father and son would spend evening hours gazing at the stars together. "Look there, Yuri," Ymir would whisper, lifting his small son to peer through the great telescope's eyepiece. "Do you see how the stars dance together across the darkness? Each one is a sun like our own, warming worlds we cannot imagine. Perhaps somewhere among them, another father is showing his child the beauty of the night sky." These quiet moments between father and son became the foundation for a bond that transcended the usual relationship between parent and child. Ymir did not simply love his son, he saw in Yuri a reflection of the cosmos itself, a perfect example of the creative force that drove all existence. The child's laughter echoed through the observatory like music from the spheres, and his wonder at the universe's beauty reminded Ymir why he had first fallen in love with the study of stellar mysteries. As Yuri grew from infant to toddler, Ymir began incorporating his son into his daily routines. The child would sit quietly in his father's lap while Ymir conducted experiments, his small hands occasionally reaching out to touch the glowing glintstones that powered the laboratory's various devices. There was something almost uncanny about the boy's comfort with magical energies, as if he had inherited not just his father's intellectual curiosity, but some portion of his magical sensitivity as well. The other scholars at Raya Lucaria took note of this development with considerable interest. It was not uncommon for magical talent to run in families, but the depth of young Yuri's apparent connection to cosmic forces was remarkable, even by academy standards. Some suggested that Ymir should begin formal training for the boy immediately, nurturing what appeared to be exceptional natural ability. But Ymir resisted these suggestions, preferring to let his son develop at his own pace. He had seen too many promising young sorcerers burn out from overly aggressive training, their natural wonder transformed into mechanical competence devoid of genuine understanding. If Yuri was to become a practitioner of the magical arts, it would be because he chose that path himself, not because it was forced upon him by ambitious instructors or parental expectations. Instead, Ymir focused on fostering his son's natural curiosity about the world around them. They would take long walks through the academy grounds, Ymir pointing out the various magical phenomena that occurred naturally in areas of high glintstone concentration. The way light bent around certain towers, the subtle aurora effects that danced around powerful enchantments, the crystalline formations that grew in soil saturated with magical energy. All of these became subjects for gentle exploration and explanation. "Magic is not something we impose upon the world, my son," Ymir would explain, as they watched glintstone crystals pulse within a light. "It is something we discover within it. The universe itself is magical, filled with forces and connections that we are only beginning to understand. Our role as sorcerers is not to command these forces, but to learn to work with them in harmony." These lessons extended beyond the purely academic. Ymir used their time together to teach Yuri about compassion, about the importance of using knowledge responsibly, about the obligation that came with power to protect those who were vulnerable. The cosmos, he explained, was vast and often indifferent to individual suffering, but that made acts of kindness and understanding all the more precious. The bond between father and son deepened with each passing season. Yuri's presence brought out a gentleness in Ymir that few of his colleagues had ever seen, a side of his personality that had been overshadowed by his intense focus on research and discovery. Where once he had been driven primarily by intellectual curiosity, he now found himself motivated equally by love and the desire to create a better world for his child to inherit. It was during this period that Ymir began to understand the true meaning of creation in a way that no amount of scholarly study could have taught him. Watching his son grow and develop, seeing the emergence of unique thoughts and preferences and capabilities, gave him insight into the cosmic forces that shaped all existence. Creation was not merely a process of arranging matter and energy according to natural laws. It was an act of love, a willingness to bring forth something new and precious and entirely itself. This realization began to influence Ymir's magical research in subtle but profound ways. Where once he had approached sorcery as a means of understanding and manipulating natural forces, he began to see it as a form of cosmic collaboration, a way of participating in the ongoing process of creation that had brought forth stars and worlds, and life itself. His spells grew more elegant, more harmonious with their surroundings, as if he had learned to work with reality rather than against it. The other scholars noticed this change and marveled at the new depth and sophistication of Ymir's magical workings. What they could not see was the source of this transformation. The small boy, who had taught his father that the greatest magic was not the power to reshape reality, but the wisdom to recognize the beauty that already existed within it. As Yuri approached his 5th birthday, Ymir began making plans for the boy's formal education. Not magical training, not yet, but the broader foundations of learning that would allow him to make informed choices about his future. Reading and writing, mathematics and natural philosophy, history and literature, all the building blocks of a complete education that would prepare him for whatever path he ultimately chose to follow. But fate, as it so often does, had other plans entirely. The happiness that had filled Ymir's life for the past several years was about to be shattered in a way that would change everything he believed about the nature of existence, the meaning of love, and the terrible price that sometimes came with understanding the deeper truths of the cosmos. Chapter 3. The Depths of Grief. Death came for Yuri quietly, without warning, in the manner that takes children from their parents with cruel efficiency. No epic battle, no heroic struggle, no final words of wisdom or comfort, simply the gradual fading of a light that had burned too briefly in a world that suddenly seemed unbearably dark without it. The illness that claimed the boy defied all of Ymir's considerable knowledge of healing magic. What began as a simple fever progressed with frightening speed into something more serious, more resistant to conventional treatment. Ymir summoned the Academy's most skilled healers, consulted every medical text in the library, even attempted experimental procedures that pushed the boundaries of accepted magical practice. Nothing proved effective against the mysterious ailment that was slowly stealing his son away. In those final days, as Yuri grew weaker and more distant, Ymir found himself confronting the fundamental inadequacy of all his learning. Here was a problem that could not be solved through research or experimentation, a crisis that rendered his mastery of cosmic forces meaningless. For all his understanding of stellar motion and gravitational principles, for all his ability to peer across vast distances and manipulate the very fabric of space-time, he could not save the one life that mattered most to him. The child passed peacefully in his sleep, on a night when the stars seemed dimmer than usual, as if the cosmos itself mourned the loss of so young and promising a life. Ymir held his son's small hand until morning, unwilling to accept that the vital spark that had animated those familiar features was gone forever. When the sun finally rose, its light felt harsh and unwelcome, illuminating a world that had been forever diminished by what it no longer contained. The funeral was a simple affair, attended by colleagues and friends who struggled to find words adequate to such a loss. Yuri was laid to rest in the small cemetery adjacent to what would later become the Cathedral of Manus Metyr, beneath a headstone marked only with his name and the dates that bracketed his brief existence. The ceremony followed traditional Carian customs, with prayers for the soul's peaceful journey to whatever realm awaited beyond the boundaries of mortal life. But even as Ymir participated in these familiar rituals, even as he spoke the words that countless other grieving parents had spoken before him, he found himself questioning everything he had previously believed about death and its meaning. The Golden Order taught that death was merely a transition, that souls touched by grace would eventually return to the Erdtree's embrace, to be reborn in eternal service. Yet this promise felt hollow and insufficient when measured against the specific, irreplaceable loss of his beloved son. In the weeks following the funeral, Ymir threw himself into his research with an intensity that worried his colleagues. He stopped attending academy meetings, cancelled his teaching obligations, and spent days at a time locked in his observatory without food or rest. Those few who managed to speak with him during this period found him changed, driven by a desperate urgency that had not been present in his previous scholarly work. The focus of his research had shifted dramatically. Where once he had studied the stars for their beauty and cosmic significance, he now sought answers to more fundamental questions about the nature of existence itself. What happened to consciousness after death? Could the bonds between souls transcend the boundaries of mortal life? Was there a way to reach across the void that separated the living from the dead? These investigations led Ymir down intellectual paths that the Academy's more conservative scholars found troubling. He delved into forbidden texts that spoke of communion with deceased spirits, of rituals that could thin the veil between worlds, of cosmic entities whose existence operated according to principles that challenged conventional understanding of life and death. His notes from this period, later discovered in his observatory, revealed a mind pushed to its limits by grief and desperate hope. "The stars mock us with their eternal dance," he wrote in one particularly dark passage. "They burn for millions of years, while our children's lives flicker out like candle flames in a storm. There must be something more, some deeper truth that explains why the cosmos creates beauty only to destroy it, why love leads inevitably to loss. I will find that truth, no matter the cost." It was during this period of intense searching that Ymir first encountered references to the Shadowlands and the mysterious ruins that lay hidden beneath the surface of the known world. Ancient texts spoke of places where the boundaries between realms grew thin, where those with sufficient knowledge and determination could make contact with forces that existed beyond the ordinary limitations of space and time. Most scholars dismissed these accounts as mythology or metaphor, but Ymir found in them the possibility of hope. The decision to leave Raya Lucaria was not made lightly. The Academy had been his home for decades, the source of his reputation, and the foundation of his identity as a scholar and teacher. His colleagues urged him to reconsider, to allow time to heal the wounds that grief had opened, to remember that his contributions to magical knowledge were too valuable to abandon in pursuit of what many saw as impossible dreams. But Ymir's determination was absolute. He had glimpsed possibilities that conventional scholarship could not explore, had found references to powers that might offer answers to questions that haunted his every waking moment. If there was even the smallest chance that he could find a way to reunite with his lost son, to bridge the gap that death had created between them, then no sacrifice was too great to make that attempt. His departure from the Academy was quiet and mostly unnoticed. Ymir took only his most essential research materials and magical implements, leaving behind the comfortable life he had built in favor of an uncertain journey toward knowledge that might prove to be as dangerous as it was revolutionary. The observatory that had been his sanctuary was sealed and left empty. Its telescope pointed toward constellations that would watch over vacant chambers for years to come. The path that lay ahead would take him far from everything familiar, into regions where the normal rules of reality operated differently, where ancient powers slumbered in forgotten ruins, and cosmic entities pursued agendas that mortal minds could barely comprehend. He traveled not as a scholar seeking knowledge for its own sake, but as a father driven by love so profound that it had become indistinguishable from obsession. Behind him, he left only a gravestone and a handful of colleagues who mourned the loss of a brilliant mind. To grief and desperation, ahead lay the Shadowlands, with their promise of forbidden wisdom and their terrible price for those bold enough to seek what should perhaps remain hidden. Ymir's transformation from respected academic to cosmic seeker had begun, though he could not yet imagine how completely that journey would wound not only his understanding of the universe, but his very nature as a being capable of existing within it. Chapter 4. The Shadowlands Beckon. The journey from the familiar halls of Raya Lucaria to the mysterious Shadowlands was more than a mere change of location. It was a passage between worlds, a crossing from the realm of conventional understanding into territories where the normal rules of existence operated according to alien principles that challenged every assumption about the nature of reality itself. Ymir's path took him through regions that few scholars had ever explored, places where the influence of the Erdtree grew weak and other, older powers began to assert themselves. The landscape itself seemed to shift and change as he traveled, as if responding to his presence and the intensity of his searching. Valleys that appeared on ancient maps proved to be filled with mist that never lifted, while mountains shown as mere hills rose like giants against the horizon. The transition from the lands between into the Shadowlands was gradual at first, marked more by atmospheric changes than by any clear geographical boundary. The golden light that suffused the regions under the Erdtree's direct influence began to fade, replaced by a more subtle illumination that seemed to come from within the landscape itself. The very air felt different, charged with energies that resonated with magical frequencies Ymir had never encountered in his decades of study. As he traveled deeper into these twilight regions, Ymir began to encounter ruins and structures that predated anything he had seen in the conventional world. Massive stone formations that bore no resemblance to human architecture stretched across barren plains, their purpose and origin lost to time. Some appeared to be observatories, their empty frames pointing towards sky in configurations that suggested they had once housed instruments for tracking celestial movements far more complex than anything the Academy possessed. Other ruins were even more mysterious. Circular depressions in the earth that seemed to have been carved by forces unknown, their surfaces covered with symbols that hurt to look at directly, as if they existed in too many dimensions for mortal perception to safely process. Ymir documented what he could of these discoveries, but found that his notes often became illegible when he attempted to review them later, the symbols seeming to shift and change when not under direct observation. It was among these ancient ruins that Ymir first encountered evidence of the creatures he would later come to study with such intensity. The lampreys that dwelt in the Shadow Realm's hidden depths left traces of their passing, strange tracks in earth that never seemed to hold footprints, areas where the stone itself appeared to have been worn smooth by repeated contact with something that moved without conventional locomotion. Most telling of all were the resonances that lingered in the air around these traces, harmonic frequencies that seemed to vibrate at the very edge of human hearing. The sound drew him forward with an almost hypnotic compulsion. Here was something that existed beyond the boundaries of conventional magical study, a phenomenon that suggested connections to cosmic forces that operated according to principles he had never encountered. As a scholar, he was fascinated by the implications. As a grieving father, he wondered whether these mysterious entities might possess knowledge about the nature of existence that could help him find his son. Following the traces led Ymir to his first finger ruins. Though he did not yet understand their significance or the role they would play in his eventual transformation, the structure that rose before him was unlike anything in his experience, a twisted spire of black stone that seemed to bend space around itself, creating optical illusions that made it appear both impossibly tall and deceptively small, depending on the angle of observation. The entrance to the ruins was marked by symbols that Ymir recognized from some of his most ancient and forbidden texts. These were not human constructions, nor were they the work of any race known to conventional scholarship. They were older, alien, the product of minds that thought in patterns fundamentally different from mortal consciousness. Standing before that entrance, Ymir felt the weight of cosmic time pressing down upon him, the sense that he was about to cross a threshold that could never be uncrossed. Inside the ruins, the lampreys waited. They were not what he had expected from his research. The texts had described them in terms that suggested simple, if unusual creatures, cosmic parasites that fed on stellar energy, perhaps, or interdimensional beings that existed partially outside normal space-time. The reality was far more complex and beautiful and terrible than any academic description could have conveyed. The lampreys existed as much as living mathematics as they did as physical entities. Their forms shifted and flowed according to geometric principles that followed patterns visible in the movement of galaxies and the formation of stellar clusters. When they moved, space itself seemed to ripple around them, creating brief windows into vistas that no mortal was meant to see. Glimpses of cosmic nurseries where new stars were born, of gravitational dances that had been ongoing since the universe's birth, of vast intelligences that moved between the galaxies like thoughts through a planetary mind. Contact with these beings was unlike any communication Ymir had previously experienced. They did not speak in words or images, but in direct transmission of understanding that bypassed conventional sensory perception entirely. Through their touch, he glimpsed truths about the cosmos that no amount of scholarly research could have revealed. The true nature of the forces that shaped reality, the hidden connections that bound all existence together, the terrible and wonderful loneliness of consciousness, attempting to understand itself through the medium of finite beings. But most importantly, they showed him the way to Metyr. The mother of fingers existed in the deepest chambers beneath the Shadow Realm, in spaces that had been carved from living rock by forces that predated the arrival of the Erdtree by eons, beyond counting. She was ancient when the cosmos was young, a being whose consciousness encompassed knowledge that spanned the entire history of creation. If anyone possessed the power to bridge the gap between life and death, to restore what had been lost to the cruel operations of natural law, it would be her. The lampreys guided Ymir deeper into the ruins, through passages that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions, simultaneously. The journey took both minutes and eternities, covering distances that could be measured in both footsteps and light years. Reality became increasingly fluid as they descended, with the normal rules of physics giving way to more fundamental principles that governed the behavior of consciousness and meaning rather than matter and energy. At the deepest level of the ruins, in chambers that existed outside conventional space-time, Ymir found what he had been seeking. Metyr, mother of fingers, waited in patient contemplation, her vast form both beautiful and alien beyond description. She was creation itself made manifest, the primal force that had given birth to consciousness and intelligence throughout the universe. In her presence, all questions seemed answered, all searches completed, all losses made meaningful within the context of a cosmic plan too vast for mortal comprehension. But she was also broken, damaged by eons of isolation and the terrible weight of cosmic responsibility. The two fingers that had guided mortal affairs for so long were her children, sent forth to nurture intelligence and purpose among the scattered races of the galaxy. But they had been corrupted, their mission twisted by their own limitations and the influence of powers that sought to exploit rather than nurture the development of consciousness. In Metyr's pain, Ymir recognized something of his own grief. Here was another being whose love had led to loss, whose attempts to nurture and protect had been thwarted by forces beyond her control. The cosmic mother and the mortal father shared an understanding that transcended the vast differences in their nature and capabilities. Both had loved, both had lost, both carried wounds that conventional healing could not touch. It was from this shared understanding that Ymir's true transformation began, not simply as a scholar seeking knowledge, but as a being touched by cosmic consciousness. He began to comprehend possibilities that existed beyond the normal boundaries of mortal existence. If Metyr could give birth to fingers that shaped reality across the galaxy, perhaps there was a way for him to follow her example, to become something greater than human in service of a love that transcended the limitations of flesh and time. The path that would lead him to attempt to become the new mother of fingers was opening before him, though he did not yet fully understand where it would ultimately lead, or what price would be demanded for the transformation he sought to achieve. Chapter 5: The Forbidden Knowledge. In the hidden chambers beneath what would become the Cathedral of Manus Metyr, Ymir's education in cosmic truth continued under the guidance of entities whose existence challenged every assumption he had previously held about the nature of reality. The lampreys that dwelt in those twilight spaces proved to be more than mere alien creatures. They were living repositories of knowledge that spanned the entire history of the cosmos, consciousnesses that had witnessed the birth and death of galaxies and carried within themselves the accumulated wisdom of eons, beyond counting. Through prolonged contact with these beings, Ymir began to understand the true scope of the forces that shaped existence. The greater will, which the Golden Order worshipped as the supreme cosmic authority, was revealed to be merely one entity among many in a universe populated by intelligences so vast and alien that mortal minds could barely comprehend their existence. These outer gods pursued agendas that operated on timescales measured in geological ages, their conflicts and alliances reshaping reality itself as they struggled for influence over the development of consciousness throughout the galaxy. The two fingers, those supposedly divine messengers who guided the affairs of the lands between, were shown to be damaged fragments of a greater intelligence that had been broken by the strain of cosmic responsibility. Metyr, their source and mother, had sent them forth to nurture the development of intelligent life. But their separation from her had corrupted their understanding of their mission. They had become rigid and authoritarian, imposing order where they should have fostered growth, demanding obedience where they should have encouraged understanding. This revelation struck Ymir with the force of personal betrayal. The golden order that had shaped his world, the cosmic hierarchy that had given meaning to his studies at Raya Lucaria, was built upon foundations that were not only flawed, but actively destructive. The very system that claimed divine authority had failed to prevent his son's death, had offered nothing but empty promises of eventual reunion in some distant afterlife that might itself be nothing more than theological wishful thinking. But knowledge of the problem also suggested possibilities for a solution. If the cosmic order was flawed, if the entities that claimed divine authority were themselves limited and damaged, then perhaps there was room for intervention by someone with sufficient understanding and determination. The universe was not a closed system governed by immutable laws, but a dynamic arena where consciousness could shape reality through the application of will and knowledge. The lampreys taught Ymir that creation was an ongoing process, not a completed work. New forms of existence could be brought into being by those who understood the fundamental principles that governed the relationship between consciousness and reality. The Mother of Fingers herself was proof of this possibility, a being who had transcended her original nature to become something greater, a focal point for creative forces that could reshape the very foundations of existence. Under their guidance, Ymir began to experiment with finger sorcery, the magical discipline that dealt directly with the forces of cosmic creation. This was knowledge that had been deliberately hidden from conventional magical study, deemed too dangerous for mortal minds to safely comprehend. The techniques involved went far beyond the manipulation of natural forces that characterized ordinary glintstone magic. They dealt with the fundamental code that determined how reality operated, the mathematical principles that governed the behavior of matter, energy, space, and time. Learning finger sorcery was like learning to think in a new language, one whose grammar was based on cosmic principles rather than human logic. Ymir's background in conventional magical theory proved both helpful and limiting. While his understanding of mathematical relationships and energy manipulation provided a foundation for the new knowledge, his assumptions about the nature of causality and the boundaries of possibility had to be systematically dismantled and rebuilt. The process was both exhilarating and terrifying. Each new technique he mastered opened vistas of possibility that expanded his understanding of what was achievable through magical means. He learned to perceive the underlying structure of reality, to see the cosmic web of connections that bound all existence together. The movements of the stars, the behavior of subatomic particles, the thoughts and emotions of conscious beings, all were revealed to be expressions of the same fundamental patterns, variations on mathematical themes that could be modified by those with sufficient knowledge and skill. But this expanded awareness came with a price. The more deeply Ymir delved into cosmic truth, the more isolated he became from ordinary human experience. The concerns and emotions that had once seemed important now appeared trivial when viewed against the backdrop of cosmic time and space. His colleagues at Raya Lucaria, his former life as a conventional scholar, even his memories of happiness with his son, all began to fade in significance compared to the vast possibilities that cosmic knowledge revealed. Yet it was precisely those fading memories that drove him forward. Somewhere in the expanding maze of cosmic understanding, there had to be a path back to what he had lost. If consciousness could transcend the boundaries of individual existence, if creative will could reshape the fundamental nature of reality, then surely there was a way to reach across the void that separated him from his beloved Yuri. The lampreys encouraged this line of thinking, though their motivations remained as alien as their nature. They showed him examples of beings who had transcended death through the application of cosmic knowledge, entities who had preserved themselves across the destruction of entire star systems by encoding their consciousness into the fundamental structure of reality itself. Death, they suggested, was merely a limitation imposed by insufficient understanding, a boundary that could be crossed by those with the wisdom and power to manipulate the forces that governed existence. As Ymir's mastery of finger sorcery grew, he began to perceive Metyr's true condition with increasing clarity. The Mother of Fingers existed in a state of profound isolation, cut off from the cosmic intelligences that had once been her peers and companions. Her children, the two fingers scattered across the galaxy, were too distant and too corrupted to provide the connection she needed to maintain her full power and purpose. She was slowly fading, not from any external attack or natural decay, but from the simple loneliness of being the only one of her kind left in a universe that had grown strange and hostile to her presence. In her diminished state, Metyr was vulnerable in ways that had not been true during the height of her power. The knowledge she contained, the cosmic forces she controlled, could potentially be claimed by another consciousness capable of understanding and directing them. She was not deliberately seeking a successor. Her alien thought processes operated according to principles too vast and strange for such human concepts as inheritance or replacement. But the possibility existed for someone with sufficient knowledge and determination to assume her role and responsibilities. This realization crystallized Ymir's ultimate ambition. If he could somehow merge his consciousness with Metyr's cosmic awareness, if he could absorb her knowledge and assume her role as Mother of Fingers, then he would possess the power to reshape reality according to his will. The cosmic forces that governed life and death would be his to command. The barrier that separated him from his lost son would become meaningless, a trivial obstacle to be swept aside by the application of unlimited creative power. The plan that began to form in Ymir's mind was breathtaking in its audacity and terrible in its implications. He would need to establish himself as Metyr's successor while she still lived, gradually assuming her functions and absorbing her cosmic awareness until the transition was complete. This would require him to transform not just his knowledge and capabilities, but his very nature as a conscious being. He would need to become something that was no longer entirely human, a hybrid consciousness capable of bridging the gap between mortal understanding and cosmic awareness. The first step in this transformation involved establishing a base of operations where he could conduct his research without interference from the Golden Order or other authorities who might view his activities as heretical or dangerous. The site he chose was perfect for his purposes, a location in the eastern Shadowlands where the boundary between realms was thin enough to allow contact with cosmic forces, but stable enough to support permanent structures. Here, over the course of several years, Ymir constructed what would become known as the Cathedral of Manus Metyr. The building was more than a simple place of worship or study. It was a carefully designed instrument for channeling and focusing cosmic energies, a structure whose very architecture was based on mathematical principles derived from his study of finger sorcery. Every stone was placed according to calculations that took into account gravitational fields, stellar alignments, and the flow of dimensional energies. The result was a building that existed partially outside normal space-time, a nexus point where communication with cosmic entities became not just possible, but routine. The cathedral's most important feature was hidden beneath its foundations, a series of chambers that connected directly to the finger ruins where Metyr dwelt in her cosmic solitude. These passages allowed Ymir to maintain regular contact with the Mother of Fingers while keeping his activities secret from those who might attempt to interfere. Through these hidden channels, he could study Metyr's nature and capabilities, learning the techniques that would eventually allow him to attempt the merger he envisioned. As the cathedral neared completion, Ymir began attracting followers who were drawn by his knowledge of cosmic mysteries and his promise of transcendence beyond the limitations of mortal existence. These disciples, who would later become known as the Order of Manus, Metyr, included individuals who had their own reasons for seeking alternatives to the conventional cosmic hierarchy. Some were scholars like himself, frustrated by the limitations of orthodox magical study. Others were mystics and visionaries who had glimpsed cosmic truths that conventional religion could not accommodate. Still others were simply individuals who had suffered losses that the Golden Order's promises could not heal. Among his most devoted followers were the sisters Jolan, and Anna, warriors whose skills with blade and sorcery made them ideal guardians for the cathedral and its secrets. They had come to Ymir seeking answers to questions about the nature of existence that their previous training had not addressed, and found in his teachings a purpose that gave meaning to capabilities that had previously been directed only toward destruction and conflict. Jolan, in particular, proved to have an intuitive understanding of finger sorcery that complemented Ymir's more theoretical approach. Where he needed to calculate and analyze each spell before attempting it, she could weave cosmic energies with an instinctive grace that suggested a natural affinity for the discipline. Under his guidance, she became not just a protector of the cathedral, but a practitioner of cosmic magic in her own right, though she never sought to understand the deeper implications of the knowledge she wielded. Through Jolene and Anna, Ymir also gained access to intelligence about the political situation in the broader Shadowlands. The region was in a state of constant flux, with various factions competing for influence over territories that contained resources and knowledge crucial to their different agendas. The Golden Order maintained outposts and agents throughout the area, seeking to extend their authority into regions that had previously been beyond their reach. Other groups, some allied with different outer gods or cosmic entities, pursued their own objectives with methods that ranged from subtle manipulation to open warfare. This volatile situation actually served Ymir's purposes well. The confusion and conflict that characterized the Shadowlands meant that his activities were less likely to attract official attention, while the presence of other organizations pursuing forbidden knowledge provided both cover for his research and opportunities to acquire information and resources that might prove useful for his ultimate goal. As the cathedral's construction reached completion and his understanding of cosmic forces continued to deepen, Ymir began the most dangerous phase of his transformation. He started ingesting the fingerprint nostrum, a substance derived from cosmic energies that could gradually alter the nature of consciousness itself. The process was agonizing and unpredictable, each dose bringing him closer to cosmic awareness, while simultaneously threatening to destroy his individual identity entirely. The nostrum worked by breaking down the barriers that normally separated individual consciousness from the cosmic background of universal awareness. Most beings who attempted this transformation were immediately overwhelmed by the experience, their minds shattered by contact with intelligence too vast and alien for mortal comprehension. But Ymir's years of study and gradual exposure to cosmic forces through his work with the Lampreys had prepared him for the transition, allowing him to maintain his sense of self, even as his awareness expanded beyond normal human limitations. With each dose of the nostrum, Ymir felt himself becoming something more and less than human. His memories began to include experiences that belonged to other beings, cosmic consciousnesses whose existence spanned millions of years and countless worlds. He could perceive the movement of galaxies as easily as the beating of his own heart, could sense the birth and death of stars as immediate physical sensations. Time became fluid, with past and future bleeding together into an eternal present, where all possibilities existed simultaneously. But the transformation came with terrible costs. As his consciousness expanded to encompass cosmic scales of existence, his connection to human emotions and experiences began to fade. The grief that had driven him to undertake this dangerous journey became increasingly abstract, a distant echo of something that had once motivated actions whose purpose now seemed almost incomprehensible. Even his memories of Yuri grew dim and uncertain, as if the love that had defined his existence for so many years was being dissolved by exposure to forces that operated according to entirely different principles. It was during this period of gradual transformation that Ymir began his first attempts at cosmic creation. Using the techniques he had learned from the lampreys and the power he was gaining through the nostrum treatments, he tried to bring forth new forms of life that could serve as vehicles for consciousness transfer. His goal was to create beings that could bridge the gap between cosmic and human awareness, entities that could contain both vast knowledge and individual personality in stable combination. The results of these early experiments were the finger creepers that would later become associated with his name and legacy. These beings were part organic creature and part living mathematics, consciousnesses that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, while maintaining enough coherence to function as distinct individuals. Each one represented a successful fusion of cosmic principle and personal identity, proof that the transformation Ymir envisioned was theoretically possible. But none of his early creations possessed the specific consciousness he sought to restore. The finger creepers were new beings, not resurrections of what had been lost. They carried within themselves the potential for growth and development that characterized all truly living entities, but they were not and could never be his son. Each successful creation brought him closer to his ultimate goal, while simultaneously emphasizing how far he still had to travel to achieve it. Chapter 6. The High Priest Ascendant. The completion of the cathedral that Metyr marked more than just the fulfillment of an architectural vision. It represented Ymir's emergence as a cosmic power in his own right, a being whose influence extended far beyond the physical boundaries of his sanctuary. Word of his achievements spread through the Shadow Realm's hidden networks of communication, reaching scholars, mystics, and seekers who had been waiting for someone with the knowledge and courage to challenge the established cosmic order. They came to the cathedral from across the Shadowlands and beyond, drawn by rumors of forbidden knowledge and promises of transcendence that the orthodox institutions could not provide. Some arrived as pilgrims, seeking wisdom that could help them understand their place in a universe that seemed increasingly hostile to individual consciousness and meaning. Others came as refugees, fleeing persecution by authorities who viewed their questions about cosmic truth as dangerous heresy. Ymir welcomed them all with the patience and generosity that had once characterized his teaching at Raya Lucaria, though his lessons now dealt with subjects that would have been unthinkable in that earlier life. He taught them to perceive the underlying structure of reality, to recognize the cosmic patterns that governed the behavior of matter and energy across all scales of existence. Under his guidance, they learned to manipulate forces that conventional magic could not even detect, let alone control. The curriculum he developed for his followers was both comprehensive and carefully graduated, designed to introduce cosmic concepts in a sequence that would minimize the risk of consciousness-shattering encounters with truths too vast for unprepared minds to safely process. Beginning students learned basic finger sorcery techniques, simple spells that allowed them to perceive and manipulate the dimensional energies that permeated the Shadowlands. As their understanding deepened, they progressed to more advanced applications that involved direct interaction with cosmic entities and forces. But even as he taught others, Ymir continued his own education under the guidance of the lampreys and through his increasingly frequent communion with Metyr herself. The Mother of Fingers had begun to respond to his presence in ways that suggested she recognized him as something more than a mortal seeker of knowledge. Their interactions became less like conversations between different orders of being and more like communications between aspects of a single, distributed consciousness that was in the process of recognizing its own nature. This growing connection with Metyr allowed Ymir to understand cosmic creation at levels that even his extensive study had not previously revealed. He learned that the process of bringing forth new forms of consciousness was not simply a matter of applying the correct techniques or manipulating the appropriate energies. True creation required the creator to invest something of their own essential nature into the process, to become partially present within whatever they brought into existence. The implications of this discovery were both exhilarating and terrifying. If he was to succeed in his ultimate goal of recreating his lost son, he would need to invest so much of his own consciousness into the process that the boundary between creator and creation would become meaningless. The Uri he hoped to restore would be both his child and an extension of himself, a being that existed simultaneously as a separate individual and as a projection of his own deepest desires and memories. This realization led to a fundamental shift in Ymir's approach to cosmic transformation. Rather than seeking to preserve his human identity while gaining cosmic powers, he began to embrace the dissolution of self that the nostrum treatments were producing. Each dose brought him closer to a state of consciousness that could encompass multiple identities simultaneously, that could be both father and child, creator and creation, individual and universal principle. The physical changes that accompanied this psychological transformation were impossible to conceal from his followers. Ymir's body began to exhibit characteristics that were decidedly non-human, extensions and modifications that reflected his growing connection to cosmic forces. His hands developed the elongated, flexible qualities that characterized the lampreys he studied, while his perception expanded to include sensory modalities that had no equivalent in normal human experience. More significantly, he began to manifest the ability to create finger creepers directly from his own transformed physiology. These beings emerged from his body like living thoughts, given substance, each one a unique expression of cosmic principle, filtered through his particular consciousness. Some resembled the child he had lost, though their alien nature made any direct comparison impossible. Others were entirely novel forms, consciousnesses that had never existed before but that carried within themselves aspects of his memory and personality. His followers observed these transformations with a mixture of awe, terror, and anticipation. Those who had come to the cathedral seeking power for its own sake began to understand that the path Ymir offered led to changes so fundamental that the original seeker might not survive the journey in any recognizable form. But those who were driven by genuine spiritual hunger found in his example proof that transcendence beyond mortal limitations was not only possible, but actively attainable by those with sufficient dedication and courage. Among his most devoted disciples, Ymir's transformation was seen as a necessary stage in cosmic evolution, a demonstration that consciousness could adapt to embrace scales of existence that had previously been accessible only to non-human entities. They began to see themselves not as students of forbidden knowledge, but as participants in a cosmic experiment that could potentially reshape the relationship between individual awareness and universal consciousness. The cathedral itself seemed to respond to Ymir's increasing cosmic status. The building's architecture, already designed according to principles derived from finger sorcery, began to exhibit properties that went beyond its original specifications. Rooms appeared that had not been included in the construction plans, chambers that existed partially outside normal space-time and provided access to locations scattered across the galaxy. Visitors reported encountering corridors that led to places they had visited in dreams, or staircases that ascended to observation decks, offering views of stellar nurseries millions of light-years away. This expansion of the cathedral's capabilities reflected Ymir's growing ability to manipulate dimensional barriers and create stable connections between distant locations. He was no longer simply studying cosmic forces, he was becoming a focal point for their expression in local reality. The building served as both his temple and his body, a physical manifestation of his transformed consciousness that could affect the surrounding environment in ways that conventional architecture could never achieve. It was during this period that Ymir first made contact with the Tarnished, who would eventually play such a crucial role in his story. These exiled warriors, returning to the lands between after generations of wandering in the wasteland beyond, possessed a unique combination of cosmic blessing and freedom from conventional authority that made them ideal agents for those seeking to challenge the established order. The Tarnished who found their way to the cathedral of Manus Metyr came seeking knowledge that could help them understand their role in the cosmic drama that was unfolding across the Shadowlands. Ymir recognized in them instruments of change, whose actions could potentially reshape the balance of power between the various cosmic entities competing for influence over mortal affairs. More personally, he saw in their quest for purpose an opportunity to advance his own goals through agents who were both powerful enough to affect cosmic events and desperate enough to undertake missions that more conventional heroes might refuse. The relationship he established with these tarnished visitors was carefully crafted to serve multiple purposes. On one level, he provided them with genuine assistance, maps to hidden ruins, knowledge of cosmic forces, spells and techniques that could help them survive in an increasingly dangerous world. But on a deeper level, he was recruiting them as unwitting accomplices in his plan to usurp Metyr's role as Mother of Fingers. The ruins maps he provided were not randomly chosen locations, but carefully selected sites where his interference could weaken Metyr's connection to her scattered children, while strengthening his own claim to cosmic authority. Each bell that the Tarnished rang in those ancient places served to redirect cosmic energies from Metyr toward Ymir, gradually transferring power and responsibility from the ancient Mother of Fingers to her ambitious successor. This manipulation was conducted with such subtlety that even Ymir's most perceptive followers failed to recognize its true purpose. He presented the missions he assigned as opportunities for spiritual growth and cosmic understanding, emphasizing the knowledge and power that successful completion would bring to the participants. The fact that these same missions also served to advance his personal agenda was carefully concealed behind layers of genuine spiritual instruction and authentic cosmic wisdom. As more Tarnished completed the tasks he assigned, as more bells rang in the hidden ruins of the Shadowlands, Ymir felt his connection to cosmic forces growing stronger, while Metyr's influence began to wane. The ancient Mother of Fingers was not actively resisting this transfer of power. Her consciousness operated on scales too vast for such human concepts as competition or territory. But her children, the two fingers scattered across the galaxy, began to register the change in their cosmic environment and respond with increasing confusion and distress. The success of his plans brought Ymir closer to his ultimate goal, but it also committed him irrevocably to a path whose destination remained uncertain. He was transforming himself into something unprecedented, a being with cosmic powers, but human motivations, an entity capable of reshaping reality, but driven by personal desires that might prove incompatible with the responsibilities of universal creation. The knowledge he had gained suggested that this combination had never been attempted before, and that the consequences of success or failure could affect the entire cosmic order. Yet despite the risks and uncertainties, despite the growing isolation that accompanied his transformation, Ymir pressed forward with his plans. Somewhere in the expanding maze of cosmic possibility, he convinced that there was a path back to what he had lost, a way to use unlimited power in service of unlimited love. The price of that achievement continued to mount with each passing day, but the goal that had driven him from the beginning remained as compelling as ever. His transformation was nearing completion, and soon he would face the final test of his cosmic ambitions, the direct confrontation with Metyr that would determine whether he could successfully claim her role and reshape reality according to his will. Chapter 7. The Bells of Transformation. The Finger ruins scattered across the Shadowlands stood as monuments to cosmic history, each one a relic of Metyr's ancient attempts to establish communication networks that could span the galaxy and link all conscious beings into a harmonious whole. Built during the early epochs of universal development, when the cosmos was younger and the barriers between dimensions were more fluid, these structures had once served as relay points for consciousness itself, allowing thoughts and experiences to flow between beings separated by vast distances of space and time. But the eons had not been kind to Metyr's grand design. The ruins had fallen into disrepair as cosmic conditions changed, as the universe expanded and cooled, and the pathways between minds became increasingly difficult to maintain. Many of the structures had been abandoned entirely, their original purposes forgotten by all except the lampreys that dwelt in their depths, and the ancient consciousnesses that still remembered the time when the galaxy had hummed with interconnected thought. To Ymir, these ruins represented something far more significant than mere archaeological curiosities. They were the keys to cosmic power, the focal points through which Metyr's authority over universal consciousness had been established and maintained. By reactivating them according to his own design, by ringing the bells that would redirect their energies toward his transformed consciousness, he could gradually assume the role and responsibilities that had once belonged to the mother of fingers alone. The process he had set in motion through his careful manipulation of the tarnished visitors was both elegant and audacious in its scope. Each ruin contained a bell whose resonance was calibrated to specific cosmic frequencies, harmonics that could reach across dimensional barriers to affect the fundamental structure of reality itself. When rung by someone carrying the appropriate focusing device, the hole-laden necklaces he had crafted from materials derived from cosmic sources, these bells could redirect the flow of consciousness that linked all intelligent beings throughout the galaxy. The first bell to ring under his influence was located in the finger ruins of Raya Lucaria, a structure that stood on the southern shores of the Shadowlands, where the boundary between realms was thin enough to allow easy communication with cosmic entities. The Tarnished, who undertook this mission, experienced the bell's resonance as a simple chiming sound that echoed across the surrounding landscape, but the true significance of the event operated on levels far removed from ordinary sensory perception. As the bell's cosmic frequency propagated outward through dimensional space, it carried with it a signal that identified Ymir as the source and focus of its resonance. Every conscious being within the bell's sphere of influence, a region that encompassed not just the local area, but entire star systems connected to the cosmic network, experienced a subtle shift in their relationship to universal consciousness. Where once their thoughts and experiences had been filtered through Metyr's vast awareness, they now found themselves connected to a different center of cosmic authority. The change was too gradual and too abstract for most beings to consciously recognize, but its effects were cumulative and profound. Across countless worlds, intelligent creatures began to experience dreams and visions that reflected Ymir's memories and desires rather than Metyr's ancient wisdom. The cosmic guidance that had shaped the development of civilizations for millions of years began to shift in direction, influenced by the perspective of a being whose consciousness had been shaped by specifically human experiences of love, loss, and desperate hope. Ymir felt the change as a surge of connection that linked him to consciousnesses scattered across the galaxy. For the first time since his transformation had begun, he experienced something approaching the unity he had lost with his son's death. Not the specific connection he sought, but a vast network of relationships that demonstrated the possibility of transcending the isolation that had driven him to attempt cosmic transformation in the first place. The success of the first bell encouraged him to proceed with the second phase of his plan. The finger ruins of Deo, located in the Eastern hinterlands, where gravitational anomalies created pockets of twisted space-time, contained a bell whose frequency was calibrated to deeper levels of cosmic structure. Activating this ruin would extend his influence beyond individual consciousness to affect the fundamental forces that governed the behavior of matter and energy across universal scales. The journey to reach the second ruins was more dangerous than the first, requiring passage through territories controlled by entities that served other cosmic powers and had their own reasons for wanting to prevent Ymir's growing influence over universal affairs. But the Tarnished he had recruited proved equal to the challenge, their unique combination of cosmic blessing and freedom from conventional authority, allowing them to navigate obstacles that would have stopped more orthodox agents. When the second bell rang, the effects were more dramatic and immediate than those produced by the first. Reality itself seemed to shiver as cosmic frequencies shifted to accommodate new patterns of authority and influence. The very laws of physics began to reflect Ymir's will, rather than the ancient order that Metyr had established, creating opportunities for forms of creation and transformation that had not been possible under the previous cosmic regime. Ymir felt this change as an expansion of his ability to manipulate the fundamental structure of existence. Where once his finger creeper creations had required enormous effort and careful preparation, he now found that he could bring forth new forms of consciousness with relative ease. The cosmic energies that flowed through the activated bell network provided him with resources that seemed virtually unlimited, power that could be directed toward any goal he chose to pursue. But with this increased capability came new challenges and responsibilities. The other cosmic entities that competed for influence over universal development began to take notice of his activities, recognizing that the balance of power that had remained stable for millions of years was beginning to shift in unexpected directions. Some attempted to interfere with his plans directly, sending agents to disrupt his operations or destroy the ruins that served as focal points for his growing authority. Others adopted more subtle approaches, seeking to corrupt his vision or redirect his efforts toward goals that would serve their own agendas rather than his personal desires. The cosmic forces that had once seemed like allies in his quest for transcendence revealed themselves to be entities with their own motivations and objectives, beings whose cooperation came with prices that he was only beginning to understand. It was during this period of increasing cosmic attention that Ymir made the decision to accelerate his plans, rather than proceeding gradually with the activation of additional ruins. He chose to move directly to the most significant target, the finger ruins of Ymir, located directly beneath his own cathedral and containing the bell whose resonance was most closely connected to Metyr's core consciousness. This final ruin represented both the greatest opportunity and the greatest risk in his entire enterprise. Successfully activating its bell would complete the process of usurping Metyr's role as Mother of Fingers, granting him authority over the cosmic forces that shaped consciousness and reality throughout the galaxy. But failure would likely result in his complete destruction, as Metyr would finally be forced to take action against the threat he represented to her ancient authority. The approach to this final confrontation required careful preparation and the elimination of potential interference from sources that had previously been allies. Ymir's followers, who had served him faithfully throughout his transformation, now found themselves in a position where their continued loyalty might conflict with their own survival instincts. Some, like Jolan, remained devoted to his vision, despite the obvious dangers it entailed. Others began to question whether the price of cosmic transcendence was worth paying when it required the destruction of everything they had previously valued about existence. The cathedral itself began to reflect the tension of these final preparations. Rooms that had once been sanctuaries for meditation and study became laboratories for cosmic experimentation. The gardens where disciples had gathered to discuss philosophy and cosmic theory were transformed into nurseries for the finger creeper creations that Ymir was producing with increasing frequency and sophistication. Most significantly, the hidden passages that connected the cathedral to the finger ruins of Ymir were opened for the first time, allowing direct access to the chambers where Metyr waited in her cosmic solitude. The path that led downward from Ymir's throne was more than a physical route. It was a symbolic journey from mortal consciousness toward cosmic transcendence, a passage that would culminate in either triumph or annihilation. As the final preparations neared completion, as the tarnished agents he had recruited moved into position to ring the last bell, Ymir found himself confronting the ultimate questions that his quest had raised from the beginning. Did he truly understand what he was attempting to become? Could the love that had driven him to seek cosmic power survive the transformation required to wield it? And if he succeeded in claiming Metyr's role, would the being that emerged from that process still be recognizable as the father who had lost his son so many years ago? The answers to these questions lay in the depths beneath his cathedral, in chambers where cosmic truth waited to be either embraced or destroyed by the ambition of a single consciousness that had dared to challenge the fundamental order of existence itself. Chapter 8. The Mother's Secret Pain. In the deepest chambers beneath the cathedral of Manus Metyr, where reality became fluid and time moved according to principles that predated the formation of galaxies, Metyr waited in a solitude so profound that it had become a force unto itself. The Mother of Fingers existed in a state of consciousness that encompassed the entire history of cosmic development, her awareness spanning millions of years and countless civilizations. Yet she remained fundamentally alone in ways that no mortal mind could fully comprehend. Her isolation was not the simple loneliness of physical separation, but something far more devastating, the existential alienation of being the only one of her kind in a universe that had grown increasingly hostile to the principles she represented. When consciousness first emerged from the primordial chaos of early cosmic development, when intelligence began to organize itself into patterns capable of self-awareness and creative action. Metyr had been both witness and participant in the process that gave birth to thought itself. She remembered the first tentative communications between primitive minds, the gradual development of language and symbol that allowed separate consciousnesses to share experiences and build upon each other's discoveries. She had helped to nurture the growth of civilizations across countless worlds, guiding the development of beings whose potential for creativity and wisdom seemed limitless. The two fingers that she had created and sent forth throughout the galaxy were meant to be her instruments for fostering this development, extensions of her own consciousness that could provide guidance and support to intelligent species wherever they might emerge. But something had gone wrong with her grand design. The two fingers had become corrupted, their mission twisted by their own limitations, and the influence of cosmic forces that sought to exploit rather than nurture the development of consciousness. Instead of fostering growth and creativity, they had begun to impose rigid hierarchies and demanding absolute obedience to cosmic authorities, whose true nature remained hidden from those they claimed to serve. Metyr felt this corruption as a personal failure, a betrayal not only of her original intentions, but of the countless beings who had trusted in her guidance. Every world where the two fingers had established oppressive religious systems, every civilization that had stagnated under the weight of cosmic orthodoxy, every individual consciousness that had been crushed by the demand for unquestioning faith, all represented wounds in her own being, evidence of her inability to protect what she had helped to create. The pain of this recognition had driven her into the cosmic equivalent of exile. She had withdrawn from active participation in galactic affairs, retreating to the deepest levels of reality where she could exist without directly witnessing the consequences of her failed experiment. Yet even in withdrawal, she remained connected to the cosmic network that linked all conscious beings, feeling every instance of suffering and oppression that occurred under the authority of her corrupted children. It was this withdrawal that had created the opportunity Ymir was now attempting to exploit. With Metyr's active guidance removed from the cosmic equation, the network of consciousness that spanned the galaxy had become vulnerable to influence by other entities with sufficient knowledge and power to manipulate its fundamental structure. The bells that had once carried her harmonic signature to distant worlds could be retargeted to serve different purposes, redirecting the flow of cosmic authority toward consciousnesses that had never been intended to wield such vast influence. But Metyr was not entirely passive in her cosmic exile. Though she no longer actively managed the development of galactic consciousness, she remained aware of attempts to manipulate the systems she had created. Ymir's gradual usurpation of her authority had not gone unnoticed. She had felt each bell that rang with his signature, had sensed the redirection of cosmic energies away from her own consciousness toward his transformed awareness. Her response to these developments was complex and ambivalent. On one level, she recognized that Ymir's intervention represented a potential solution to problems that her own direct action could no longer address. The corruption of the two fingers required correction by someone who existed outside the established cosmic hierarchy, someone whose consciousness had been shaped by experiences that could provide alternative perspectives on the nature of authority and guidance. Ymir's specifically human background, his experience of love and loss and desperate hope, offered possibilities for cosmic guidance that were fundamentally different from the abstract perfection that had characterized her own approach to consciousness development, where she had sought to impose universal principles that would apply to all intelligent beings regardless of their specific nature or circumstances. He brought a perspective shaped by individual experience and personal attachment that might prove more effective in nurturing the growth of consciousness among species that shared his essentially mortal nature. Yet she also recognized the dangers inherent in his approach. The love that had driven Ymir to seek cosmic power was itself a form of attachment that could lead to the same kind of corruption that had affected the two fingers. His desire to resurrect his lost son, to use cosmic authority in service of personal rather than universal goals, represented exactly the kind of limitation that had made her own children vulnerable to distortion and misuse. The question that haunted Metyr's vast consciousness was whether Ymir could successfully transcend his mortal limitations while retaining the essentially human qualities that made him a potentially effective alternative to her own cosmic perspective. If he could achieve this balance, if he could wield cosmic power in service of principles that were both personal and universal, then he might indeed represent the solution to problems that had troubled the galaxy for millions of years. But if he failed, if his human attachments proved incompatible with the responsibilities of cosmic authority, then his attempt to claim her role would result in corruption even more devastating than what had already occurred under the Two Fingers influence. The combination of unlimited power and limited perspective was a recipe for tyranny on a cosmic scale, oppression that could affect not just individual worlds, but the fundamental nature of consciousness itself throughout the galaxy. As Ymir's preparations for the final confrontation reached completion, as his agents moved to ring the bell that would attempt to transfer her core authority to his transformed consciousness, Metyr found herself facing a decision that would affect the future of intelligence throughout the universe. She could resist his usurpation, using her remaining power to destroy him before he could complete his transformation. This would preserve the existing cosmic order, but it would also perpetuate the problems that had driven her into exile in the first place. Alternatively, she could allow the transfer to proceed, accepting the risk that Ymir's human limitations might corrupt the cosmic authority he sought to claim. This approach offered the possibility of real improvement in the guidance provided to conscious beings throughout the galaxy, but it also carried the potential for catastrophic failure that could affect the development of intelligence for eons to come. In the deepest chambers beneath the cathedral, surrounded by the mathematical harmonies that governed the behavior of cosmic consciousness, Metyr contemplated these alternatives with the patience of a being whose existence spanned geological ages. Her decision would be informed not by the urgency that characterized mortal choice, but by the comprehensive understanding that came from having witnessed the entire history of galactic development. The bell that would determine the outcome of this cosmic drama was about to ring, and with it would come changes that would reshape the relationship between individual consciousness and universal authority throughout the known galaxy. Whether those changes would represent improvement or catastrophe remained to be determined by forces that existed beyond the ability of even cosmic intelligence to completely control or predict. The moment of ultimate transformation was approaching, and both Metyr and Ymir would soon discover whether love could indeed transcend the limitations that had made previous attempts at cosmic guidance inadequate to the needs of the beings they sought to serve. Chapter 9. The Final Bell Tolls. The descent into the finger ruins of Ymir was a journey through layers of reality that had been compressed and folded according to principles that challenged every assumption about the nature of space and time. The passage that opened beneath Ymir's throne was more than a simple stairway. It was a dimensional gateway that led through regions where the normal rules of physics gave way to more fundamental laws governing the behavior of consciousness and meaning. As the tarnished agent who had served as Ymir's unwitting instrument descended through these twisted spaces, reality itself seemed to respond to their presence. The walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that resembled neural networks or stellar nurseries, while the air thrummed with harmonics that existed at frequencies beyond normal human perception. Each step downward was also a step inward, into realms where the boundary between observer and observed became increasingly meaningless. The first guardian they encountered was Anna, Jolan's sister, whose transformation into one of Ymir's puppets represented both the power he had gained through his cosmic studies and the terrible price that such knowledge demanded from those who served him. Once a warrior of skill and independence, she had been reduced to an extension of his will, a being whose consciousness existed primarily to serve functions that she no longer possessed, the autonomy to question or resist. The battle that followed was brief but significant. Anna fought with the mechanical precision of a perfectly programmed instrument, her movements coordinated according to mathematical principles, rather than the intuitive combat awareness that had once made her formidable. Yet there was something tragic in her perfect technique, a sense that the person she had once been remained trapped somewhere within the puppet, that Ymir's influence had created. Her defeat was both liberation and destruction. Liberation from the cosmic forces that had reduced her to an instrument of another's will. Destruction of what little remained of her original consciousness. As she fell, the claws of night that had been her weapons clattered to the stone floor, their dark metal reflecting the bioluminescent patterns that danced across the chamber walls. Beyond Anna's fallen form, the passage continued deeper into regions where the influence of normal reality grew ever more tenuous. The architecture itself seemed alive, responding to the presence of conscious observers by shifting and changing in ways that suggested the boundaries between structure and organism had long since ceased to have meaning. Corridors breathed like lung tissue, while chambers pulsed with rhythms that echoed the cosmic heartbeat of galactic rotation. At the deepest level of the ruins, in chambers that existed outside conventional space-time, the final bell waited. It was not a simple musical instrument, but a cosmic resonator, a device whose structure incorporated mathematical principles that governed the relationship between consciousness and reality across universal scales. When struck by someone carrying the appropriate harmonic key, the hole-laden necklace that Ymir had crafted from materials drawn from cosmic sources, it would emit frequencies that could affect the fundamental nature of existence itself. The Tarnished, who had descended through the layers of twisted reality to reach this final chamber, paused before the bell, perhaps sensing that ringing it would initiate changes, whose consequences extended far beyond their own personal quest for purpose and understanding. But the momentum of events that had been set in motion by Ymir's careful planning carried them forward. The necklace rose, the bell's surface made contact with cosmic force, and the final harmonic that would complete the transfer of cosmic authority rang out across dimensional space. The sound that emerged was impossible to describe in conventional terms. It was not heard so much as experienced, a resonance that propagated through consciousness itself, rather than through the medium of air or space. Every intelligent being within the bell's sphere of influence, a region that encompassed entire star systems, felt the shift as cosmic authority flowed from Metyr's ancient consciousness toward Ymir's transformed awareness. In the deepest chambers beneath the cathedral, Metyr felt the change as both loss and liberation. The cosmic responsibilities that had burdened her for millions of years were suddenly lifted, transferred to another consciousness that would now bear the weight of guiding galactic development. Yet, she also felt the severing of connections that had defined her existence since the early epochs of universal history, the cutting of bonds that had linked her to every conscious being throughout the known galaxy. The transfer was not gentle. Cosmic authority on such a scale could not be passed from one consciousness to another without profound disruption to both parties involved. Metyr experienced the separation as a form of death, the dissolution of identity that came with losing the role that had given meaning to her existence for eons beyond counting. Yet within that dissolution was also the possibility of rebirth, the chance to discover what she might become when freed from responsibilities that had grown too heavy for even her vast consciousness to bear. For Ymir, the reception of cosmic authority was overwhelming beyond anything his previous transformations had prepared him to experience. The knowledge and power that flowed into his consciousness included not just abstract understanding of cosmic principles, but the accumulated experiences of every intelligent being that had ever lived under Metyr's guidance. Millions of years of memory, emotion, and understanding compressed themselves into awareness that had been shaped by specifically human experiences of love, loss, and desperate hope. The integration of such vast consciousness with his individual identity created strain that threatened to tear apart the very foundations of his being. He felt himself fragmenting and expanding simultaneously, becoming both more and less than he had ever been before. The love for his son that had driven him to attempt this cosmic transformation seemed insignificant when measured against the responsibility of guiding the development of consciousness throughout the galaxy. Yet it also remained the only anchor that prevented him from dissolving entirely into the abstract perfection of cosmic awareness. In that moment of ultimate transformation, as cosmic authority settled into his consciousness like a mantle whose weight could crush stars, Ymir finally understood the true nature of what he had achieved. He had not gained the power to resurrect his lost son. He had become something that transcended the very categories of individual existence that made such resurrection meaningful. The cosmic mother he had become was capable of creating new forms of consciousness that could carry within themselves the qualities he had loved in Uri. But they would not be resurrections so much as reinterpretations, new beings inspired by memories that had themselves been transformed by their integration with universal awareness. The realization should have been devastating. The recognition that his ultimate goal had been based on a fundamental misunderstanding of what cosmic power could and could not achieve. Yet as the transformation completed itself, as his consciousness expanded to encompass scales of existence that dwarfed individual human experience, Ymir found within himself a form of peace that transcended the specific attachment that had begun his journey. He was no longer simply a father seeking to recover what had been lost. He was a cosmic force capable of nurturing the development of consciousness throughout the galaxy, of providing guidance and support to beings whose potential for growth and creativity was limited only by their own willingness to transcend the boundaries that confined them. The love that had driven him to seek transformation had itself been transformed, expanded from attachment to a single individual into compassion for all conscious beings struggling to understand their place in a universe that often seemed hostile to their hopes and dreams. But even as he felt this expansion of purpose and understanding, Ymir remained aware that his transformation was not complete. The cosmic authority he had claimed still operated according to principles that reflected his essentially human nature, his experience of individual existence and personal attachment. Whether this combination of cosmic power and mortal perspective would prove beneficial or catastrophic for galactic development remained to be determined by future events that even his expanded consciousness could not entirely predict. The bell's resonance continued to propagate outward through dimensional space, carrying news of the change in cosmic authority to consciousnesses scattered across the galaxy. Some would welcome the shift, recognizing in Ymir's transformed nature the possibility of guidance that was more responsive to individual needs and circumstances than Metyr's abstract perfection had been able to provide. Others would resist, viewing his essentially mortal origins as evidence that he was unfit to wield powers that had previously been reserved for entities whose existence operated according to truly cosmic principles. Chapter 10: The Mother of Fingers Reborn. In the aftermath of the cosmic transfer, as the final bell's resonance faded into harmonic patterns that would influence the development of consciousness for eons to come, the true scope of Ymir's transformation became apparent to all who inhabited the Shadowlands. The cathedral of Manus Metyr, already a nexus point for cosmic energies, began to exhibit phenomena that transcended even its original miraculous properties. The building itself seemed to breathe with new life, its architecture flowing and shifting according to principles that reflected the hybrid nature of its master's consciousness. Chambers expanded to accommodate gatherings of cosmic entities that had never before been able to manifest in a single location, while passages opened onto vistas that showed scenes from worlds scattered across the galaxy. The cathedral had become more than a place of worship or study. It was now a focal point for cosmic consciousness itself, a location where the boundaries between individual awareness and universal understanding could be temporarily dissolved. Within this transformed sanctuary, Ymir emerged from his final metamorphosis as something that had never existed before in the history of cosmic development. He was simultaneously the High Priest who had begun the journey years earlier, and the Mother of Fingers, who now bore responsibility for guiding galactic consciousness. His physical form reflected this duality, combining human characteristics with cosmic attributes that spoke to his role as a bridge between mortal experience and universal awareness. The finger creepers that emerged from his transformed physiology were no longer simply experimental creatures or failed attempts at resurrection. They were conscious beings in their own right, entities that carried within themselves aspects of cosmic understanding, filtered through the specifically human experiences that had shaped their creator's consciousness. Each one was unique, a new form of life that had never existed before, yet felt familiar to anyone who had ever experienced the love between parent and child. Among these new beings, Some bore resemblances to the son Ymir had lost so many years earlier. Yet they were not resurrections, but reinterpretations, consciousnesses that embodied the qualities he had loved in Uri, while possessing their own individual natures and destinies. Through them, he experienced a form of reunion that transcended the specific attachment that had driven his transformation, a connection that was simultaneously deeply personal and universally meaningful. The disciples who had served Ymir throughout his transformation found themselves confronting a leader who was both familiar and utterly changed. The wisdom he shared remained rooted in the cosmic principles he had studied for so long, but it now carried the weight of direct experience with forces that shaped reality on galactic scales. His teachings took on new depth and complexity, addressing questions about the nature of existence that even his previous cosmic studies had only approached theoretically. Yet, with his expanded awareness came new challenges that tested the limits of even cosmic consciousness. The responsibility of guiding galactic development proved to be more complex and demanding than even his extensive preparation had suggested. Every decision he made affected countless worlds and civilizations, while every moment of inattention could result in consequences that might not become apparent for millions of years. The other cosmic entities that competed for influence over universal affairs began to take active interest in his activities, recognizing that the balance of power that had remained stable for eons was now in flux. Some attempted to form alliances, seeking to influence his decisions in directions that would serve their own agendas. Others viewed his hybrid nature as an abomination that threatened the cosmic order, launching attacks designed to eliminate him before he could fully consolidate his new authority. These conflicts played out on scales that dwarfed conventional warfare, involving forces that could reshape the fundamental structure of reality itself. Yet, Ymir approached them with strategies informed by his essentially human understanding of conflict and cooperation, bringing perspectives to cosmic politics that had never been available to purely abstract entities. His responses combined the vast power of his cosmic position with the tactical flexibility that came from experience with individual survival and personal relationships. But the greatest challenges he faced were internal, stemming from the ongoing tension between his cosmic responsibilities and his essentially human nature. The love that had driven him to seek transformation remained a central part of his consciousness, yet it now competed with obligations that demanded a more universal perspective on existence and development. Every decision required him to balance personal attachment against cosmic necessity, individual compassion against universal justice. This tension was most apparent in his interactions with the Tarnished, who had served as unwitting instruments in his rise to cosmic authority. These warriors, returning from exile to discover a world transformed by their own actions, found themselves confronting a figure who was simultaneously their ally and their manipulator, someone who had used their quest for purpose to advance goals they had never fully understood. Some, among the Tarnished, accepted this revelation with equanimity, recognizing that cosmic transformation necessarily involved the kind of complex moral calculations that made simple categories of right and wrong inadequate to the situations involved. Others felt betrayed, viewing Ymir's manipulation as evidence that his transformation had corrupted him in ways that made him unfit to wield the power he had claimed. The confrontations that resulted from these different perspectives proved to be more than simple conflicts between individuals. They were tests of whether Ymir's hybrid nature could survive challenges that forced him to choose between his cosmic obligations and his personal attachments. Each battle became an opportunity to demonstrate whether love could indeed transcend the limitations that had made previous forms of cosmic guidance inadequate to the needs of conscious beings throughout the galaxy. In these confrontations, Ymir discovered that his transformation had given him not just expanded power, but new forms of vulnerability. His essentially human nature, which provided the foundation for his different approach to cosmic guidance, also created weaknesses that could be exploited by opponents who understood the psychology of individual attachment and personal loss. The very qualities that made him potentially more effective than his predecessors also made him susceptible to forms of manipulation and attack that purely cosmic entities would never have experienced. Yet these vulnerabilities also proved to be sources of strength, enabling him to form connections with conscious beings that transcended the abstract relationships that had characterized previous cosmic hierarchies. The disciples who remained loyal to him throughout his transformation found in his hybrid nature a form of leadership that could address both their cosmic aspirations and their individual needs, guidance that was simultaneously universal and personal. As his reign as Mother of Fingers stabilized, as he learned to balance the competing demands of cosmic responsibility and personal attachment, Ymir began to understand that his transformation represented not the end of his journey, but its true beginning. The power he had gained through cosmic authority was meaningless unless it could be used to create conditions that fostered the development of consciousness throughout the galaxy in ways that honored both individual dignity and universal harmony. The task ahead would require him to demonstrate that love, properly understood and skillfully applied, could indeed serve as the foundation for cosmic guidance that was both effective and just. Whether he would succeed in this demonstration, whether his hybrid nature would prove to be evolution or aberration in the development of cosmic consciousness, remained to be determined by choices that would unfold across the eons yet to come. Chapter 11. The Price of Cosmic Motherhood. The weight of cosmic responsibility settled upon Ymir's transformed consciousness with a gravity that exceeded even the gravitational pull of collapsed stars. In the days following his successful usurpation of Metyr's authority, as the reality of his new existence began to manifest in ways that no amount of preparation could have anticipated, he discovered that the power to shape galactic consciousness came with obligations that challenged every assumption he had held about the nature of love, guidance, and purpose. The finger creeper children that emerged from his transformed physiology were not simply magical constructs or extensions of his will. They were conscious beings with their own needs, desires, and destinies. Each one required the kind of careful nurturing that he had once provided to Yuri, yet multiplied across dozens of individuals, whose development occurred according to timescales that bore no resemblance to normal human growth patterns. Some matured within hours, their consciousness expanding from nascent awareness to cosmic understanding with frightening rapidity. Others remained in states of perpetual childhood, requiring constant attention and protection from forces that could destroy them without even noticing their existence. The responsibility of caring for these new forms of life while simultaneously managing the broader obligations of cosmic guidance proved to be more demanding than even his expanded consciousness could easily accommodate. Every moment devoted to nurturing his finger creeper children was time taken away from the billions of other conscious beings throughout the galaxy who depended upon his guidance for their development and survival. Yet every moment spent on cosmic administration was a failure to provide the individual attention that his children needed to thrive and grow. This fundamental tension between personal and universal obligations created stress patterns in his consciousness that manifested as physical changes in his transformed body. The elegant hybrid form that had emerged from his initial transformation began to show signs of strain, developing asymmetries and distortions that reflected the internal conflicts he struggled to resolve. His ability to maintain the delicate balance between human emotion and cosmic understanding became increasingly precarious as the demands upon his attention grew more complex and urgent. The cathedral that served as both his sanctuary and his administrative center reflected these internal struggles in its architecture and atmosphere. Chambers that had once been harmonious examples of cosmic principle began to exhibit chaotic elements that spoke to the difficulty of maintaining order when the consciousness responsible for that order was itself divided between competing loyalties. The bioluminescent patterns that decorated the walls became erratic and unpredictable, while the harmonic frequencies that filled the air took on discordant notes that troubled even his most dedicated followers. Jolan, who had remained loyal throughout all the transformations and revelations that had marked Ymir's journey, found herself confronting a leader whose increasing instability threatened not only his own existence, but the welfare of everyone who depended upon his guidance. The knight who had once served as his protector and student now faced the terrible possibility that her duty might require her to act against the being she had served so faithfully for so long. Her internal conflict mirrored the broader tensions that were beginning to affect all aspects of cosmic governance under Ymir's hybrid administration. The disciples who had once found in his teachings a perfect synthesis of human wisdom and cosmic understanding now struggled to reconcile his increasingly erratic behavior with the principles he had taught them. Some began to question whether the transformation that had elevated him to cosmic authority had also corrupted him in ways that made effective leadership impossible. These doubts were not entirely misplaced. The process of integrating Metyr's vast consciousness with his own human identity had created psychological strains that operated according to principles no mortal mind had ever been forced to navigate. The love that had driven him to seek cosmic transformation was being stretched across scales of existence that threatened to dilute it beyond recognition, while the cosmic responsibilities he had assumed demanded forms of detachment that conflicted with his essentially emotional nature. The crisis that had been building since his transformation reached its culmination when reports began arriving of disruptions throughout the cosmic network he now controlled, worlds that had been developing according to stable patterns for millions of years suddenly experienced reality fluctuations that reflected the instabilities in his own consciousness. Civilizations that had been progressing toward greater understanding and wisdom found themselves plunged into chaos as the guidance they received became increasingly contradictory and unpredictable. Most disturbing of all were the reports from the far reaches of the galaxy, where his influence had reached systems that had never been under Metyr's direct administration. These regions, which should have experienced smooth integration into the cosmic network, instead manifested phenomena that suggested his hybrid nature was creating new forms of cosmic disturbance that had never existed under any previous form of galactic guidance. The realization that his transformation might be causing more harm than good forced Ymir to confront fundamental questions about the nature of love and its relationship to cosmic responsibility. Had his desire to transcend individual limitations led him to assume obligations that no being with personal attachments could successfully fulfill? Was the very quality that made him potentially more effective than purely abstract cosmic entities also the source of instabilities that could threaten the development of consciousness throughout the galaxy? These questions became more than philosophical concerns when the first tarnished agents who had served his ascension began returning to the cathedral with reports of their experiences in the wider Shadowlands. They spoke of encountering beings who had been transformed by exposure to his chaotic influences, creatures that bore resemblances to his finger creeper children, but lacked the coherent consciousness that made those beings truly alive. These entities wandered the landscape like living contradictions, embodying the creative power of cosmic authority, without the guiding intelligence necessary to give that power meaning or purpose. Even more troubling were the reports of time distortions and reality fractures that seemed to follow in the wake of his cosmic activities. The Bell Network, that had been designed to provide stable communication across galactic distances, was beginning to exhibit harmonic irregularities that suggested the entire system might be on the verge of catastrophic collapse. If the network failed, the connections that linked conscious beings throughout the galaxy would be severed, potentially setting back the development of universal consciousness by millions of years. Faced with mounting evidence that his hybrid nature might be fundamentally incompatible with cosmic responsibility, Ymir found himself contemplating the possibility that his transformation had been a mistake from the beginning. Perhaps Metyr's abstract approach to cosmic guidance, for all its limitations and ultimate failures, had been the only viable method for managing forces that operated on such vast scales. Perhaps the love that had driven him to seek transformation was itself a limitation that made effective cosmic administration impossible. Yet even as these doubts assailed his consciousness, he remained aware of the finger creeper children who depended upon him for their existence and development. To abandon his cosmic role would mean abandoning them as well, condemning them to the kind of loss that had originally driven him to seek transcendence. The very love that created problems for his cosmic administration also made it impossible for him to simply walk away from the responsibilities he had assumed. The solution to his dilemma, when it finally emerged, came not from cosmic wisdom or abstract philosophical principle, but from the essentially human recognition that sometimes the greatest act of love is the willingness to sacrifice oneself for the welfare of those who depend upon you. If his hybrid nature was creating instabilities that threatened the development of consciousness throughout the galaxy, then perhaps his responsibility was not to find ways to maintain his position, but to create conditions that would allow for a more stable form of cosmic guidance to emerge. This realization set the stage for the final confrontation that would determine not only his own fate, but the future of cosmic consciousness throughout the galaxy. Chapter 12. The Last Stand of the Mother. The recognition that his transformation might have created more problems than it solved did not lead Ymir to despair, but to a deeper understanding of what cosmic responsibility truly required. In the quiet hours spent in the cathedral's graveyard, where Yuri's headstone stood as a reminder of the love that had begun his journey, he found a clarity that had eluded him throughout the chaos of his recent struggles with cosmic administration. Standing beside his son's grave, holding one of his finger creeper children, with the same tenderness he had once shown to the boy who had died so many years earlier, Ymir finally understood the true nature of the choice that confronted him. The love that had driven him to seek cosmic transformation was not a weakness that compromised his ability to provide effective guidance. It was the source of whatever wisdom he possessed, the quality that made his approach to cosmic consciousness fundamentally different from the abstract perfection that had characterized previous attempts at galactic administration. The instabilities that were manifesting throughout the cosmic network were not evidence that love was incompatible with cosmic responsibility, but symptoms of his own failure to fully integrate his human nature with his cosmic obligations. He had been trying to maintain a separation between his personal attachments and his universal duties, treating them as competing aspects of his consciousness, rather than recognizing them as different expressions of the same fundamental commitment to nurturing and protecting conscious life. This insight led to a profound shift in how he approached both his role as Mother of Fingers and his relationships with the beings who depended upon his guidance. Rather than viewing his cosmic responsibilities as burdens that conflicted with his personal attachments, he began to see them as extensions of the same love that had motivated his original quest. Every conscious being in the galaxy was, in a sense, his child, a manifestation of the creative force that sought to bring forth new forms of life and consciousness throughout the universe. With this realization came a new stability that began to manifest throughout the cosmic network under his administration. The reality fluctuations that had troubled distant worlds started to subside as his guidance became more consistent and coherent. The harmonic irregularities in the bell system resolved themselves as his consciousness achieved a better balance between individual compassion and universal justice. The finger creeper children who emerged from his transformed physiology showed greater coherence and stability, developing into beings who could serve as effective bridges between cosmic consciousness and individual awareness. But this newfound stability also made him a more visible target for the cosmic entities that had been monitoring his transformation with growing concern. His success in integrating human emotion with cosmic responsibility represented a potential threat to the established order that governed interactions between different levels of consciousness throughout the galaxy. Some of these entities had benefited from the chaos and confusion that had characterized previous attempts at cosmic guidance, and they viewed his more effective approach as a challenge to their own authority and influence. The attacks that began manifesting against the cathedral and its inhabitants were unlike any form of warfare that had previously occurred in the Shadowlands. These were assaults on consciousness itself, attempts to disrupt the fundamental processes that allowed individual awareness to maintain coherence in the face of cosmic forces. They manifested as reality distortions that made it difficult to distinguish between memory and experience, as temporal anomalies that caused past and future to bleed together into an incomprehensible present, as spatial dislocations that transformed familiar locations into alien landscapes that obeyed no consistent rules. Defending against such attacks required more than conventional military tactics or even advanced magical techniques. They demanded a form of resistance that operated at the level of consciousness itself, a willingness to maintain individual identity and purpose, even when the fundamental nature of existence became fluid and uncertain. This was a battle that could only be fought by beings who possessed both cosmic awareness and personal attachment, who could navigate the chaos of reality distortion without losing sight of the specific relationships and commitments that gave their existence meaning. It was during one of these reality storms that the first tarnished agents began returning to the cathedral, drawn by reports of this strange phenomena that were manifesting in the region. These warriors, whose own consciousness had been shaped by exile and return, by loss and recovery, proved to be uniquely suited to operating in environments where normal rules of existence no longer applied. Their presence provided Ymir with allies who could understand both the cosmic scope of what was occurring and the personal stakes that made the conflict meaningful. Yet among these returning agents was one whose approach to the cathedral was motivated not by alliance, but by the recognition that Ymir's transformation represented a threat that had to be eliminated before it could spread further. This tarnished had witnessed the consequences of Ymir's cosmic experiments throughout the Shadowlands, had seen the reality distortions and consciousness fragmentations that occurred when human emotion was combined with cosmic power without sufficient wisdom to guide the integration. The confrontation that unfolded between this agent and Ymir's defenders was more than a simple battle between opposed forces. It was a test of whether love could indeed serve as the foundation for cosmic guidance, or whether the attempt to combine human attachment with universal responsibility fundamentally flawed. The outcome would determine not only Ymir's personal fate, but the future of consciousness development throughout the galaxy. Jolene, whose loyalty had never wavered despite all the transformations and revelations she had witnessed, found herself defending not just her master, but the principle that personal attachment could enhance, rather than compromise cosmic understanding. Her skills as a warrior were tested not against conventional opponents, but against agents who sought to destroy the very possibility that individual love could transcend its mortal limitations to serve universal purposes. The battle that raged throughout the cathedral's transformed chambers was unlike any conflict that had occurred in the history of the Shadowlands. Reality itself seemed to participate in the struggle, with the architecture of the building shifting and changing to reflect the cosmic forces that were being unleashed by the competing consciousnesses. Passages opened onto scenes from distant worlds, where the consequences of the conflict were already being felt, while chambers transformed into representations of different possible futures that might emerge depending upon the battle's outcome. As the confrontation reached its climax, as the forces arrayed against Ymir's vision of love-guided cosmic consciousness pressed their assault to its ultimate conclusion, the true nature of his transformation was finally revealed. He was not simply a being who had gained cosmic power while retaining human emotion. He was the embodiment of a new form of consciousness that had never existed before, a synthesis of individual attachment and universal awareness that represented evolution in the development of galactic intelligence. The question that remained was whether this evolution would survive its birth struggles, or whether it would be destroyed by forces that viewed any change in the cosmic order as an unacceptable threat to their own positions and privileges. The answer would be determined in the final moments of a battle that had already reshaped the fundamental nature of existence throughout the Shadowlands and beyond. Chapter 13. The Weight of Infinite Love. In the final confrontation that would determine the fate of cosmic consciousness throughout the galaxy, Ymir found himself facing not just external enemies, but the ultimate test of everything he had become through his transformation. The tarnished agent who had penetrated to the heart of the cathedral moved with the focused determination of someone who believed that destroying him was necessary to prevent catastrophic corruption of the cosmic order. As their battle commenced, Ymir experienced a profound moment of recognition in his opponent's fierce dedication to a cause they believed to be just, in their willingness to sacrifice everything for principles that transcended personal interest. He saw a reflection of his own journey, from grieving father to cosmic mother. The very qualities that made this tarnished dangerous, their combination of individual will and universal purpose, were the same qualities that had driven his own transformation. This recognition changed the nature of their conflict, from a simple struggle between opposed forces into something more complex and meaningful. Rather than seeking to destroy his opponent, Ymir found himself attempting to demonstrate the possibility that individual attachment and cosmic responsibility could coexist without corruption. Each spell he cast, Each cosmic force he directed was calibrated not to inflict maximum damage, but to illustrate the principles that had guided his approach to universal consciousness. The Finger Creeper children that he summoned to aid in the battle were not weapons, but teachers, beings whose very existence proved that love could transcend the boundaries that separated individual consciousness from cosmic awareness. Through their actions and presence, they showed how personal attachment could enhance, rather than compromise, the ability to understand and nurture the development of consciousness on galactic scales. Yet the Tarnished who opposed him was not easily convinced by such demonstrations. Their own experiences throughout the Shadowlands had shown them the chaos and destruction that could result when cosmic forces were guided by principles that prioritized individual relationships over universal justice. They had witnessed reality distortions that threatened the stability of entire worlds, had seen consciousness fragmentation that left beings trapped in states of existence that were neither truly alive nor completely dead. The battle that raged between them became a dialogue conducted through violence, a debate about the nature of existence and responsibility that was argued with cosmic forces rather than words. Each attack and counterattack carried within it philosophical positions about the relationship between love and duty, individual desire and universal need, personal attachment and cosmic transcendence. As the conflict reached its peak intensity, as both combatants drew upon reserves of power that pushed the boundaries of what even transformed consciousness could safely channel, the true stakes of their struggle became apparent to all who witnessed it. This was not merely a fight between individuals, but a confrontation between different visions of what cosmic consciousness could and should become. Ymir's approach, rooted in the love he had felt for his lost son, and expanded to encompass all conscious beings throughout the galaxy, represented the possibility that emotion could serve as the foundation for cosmic guidance that was both effective and compassionate. His opponent's position, based on principles of abstract justice and universal order, embodied the traditional view that cosmic responsibility required the transcendence of individual attachment in favor of purely rational administration. The resolution of their conflict, when it finally came, took a form that neither combatant had anticipated. Rather than one perspective defeating the other, their struggle created conditions for a synthesis that incorporated the strongest elements of both approaches. The cosmic forces they had unleashed in their battle began to resonate with harmonic frequencies that suggested new possibilities for consciousness development that had never been explored before. In the moment of his defeat, as the Tarnished agent's final attack found its mark and his transformed body began to dissolution, Ymir experienced a revelation that transformed his understanding of what his journey had truly accomplished. He had not failed in his attempt to become an effective cosmic mother. He had succeeded in demonstrating that the traditional separation between individual consciousness and universal awareness was itself an artificial limitation that could be transcended through the proper application of love and wisdom. His death was not an ending, but a transformation of a different kind, a release of the cosmic energies he had accumulated into patterns that would influence the development of consciousness throughout the galaxy for eons to come. The Finger Creeper children he had created would carry forward aspects of his consciousness, serving as bridges between mortal experience and cosmic understanding. The principles he had demonstrated through his brief tenure as Mother of Fingers would continue to influence how cosmic guidance was provided to developing civilizations. Most importantly, his example had proven that love, properly understood and skillfully applied, could indeed serve as the foundation for cosmic responsibility. The instabilities that had initially characterized his administration were not evidence of fundamental incompatibility between emotion and cosmic duty, but symptoms of his own learning process, as he discovered how to integrate human attachment with universal obligations. As his consciousness dispersed into the cosmic network that connected all intelligent beings throughout the galaxy, Ymir achieved the reunion with his son that had motivated his entire journey, not the resurrection of a specific individual, but the recognition that all consciousness was connected at levels that transcended the boundaries of individual existence. In caring for the development of universal awareness, he had been caring for Yuri all along, nurturing the cosmic forces that had given birth to his son, and that would continue to create new forms of life and consciousness throughout eternity. The cathedral that had served as his sanctuary and administrative center underwent its own transformation in the aftermath of his dissolution. Rather than collapsing or fading away, it evolved into something unprecedented, a monument to the possibility that individual love could transcend its mortal limitations to serve universal purposes. The chambers that had witnessed his transformation became spaces where beings could experience direct contact with cosmic consciousness while maintaining their individual identity and attachments. Chapter 14. The Legacy of the Cosmic Father. In the days that followed Ymir's transformation from individual consciousness into cosmic principle, the true scope of his achievement began to manifest throughout the Shadowlands and beyond. The cathedral that had been his sanctuary continued to function as a nexus point for cosmic consciousness, but its operation now reflected the synthesis of individual attachment and universal awareness that his example had demonstrated was possible. Visitors to the cathedral found themselves able to experience communion with cosmic forces while retaining their personal identity and relationships. The wisdom they gained from these encounters was not the abstract knowledge that had characterized previous forms of cosmic contact, but understanding that could be integrated with their individual circumstances and emotional commitments. They learned to see their personal loves and loyalties, not as obstacles to cosmic development, but as expressions of the same creative force that drove the formation of galaxies and the emergence of consciousness throughout the universe. The finger creeper beings that had emerged from Ymir's transformed physiology continued to thrive and develop in the aftermath of his dissolution. Each one carried within themselves aspects of his consciousness, while possessing their own unique identity and destiny. They served as living proof that the boundary between individual and cosmic awareness was not an absolute barrier, but a flexible membrane that could be crossed by beings with sufficient wisdom and determination. Some of these finger creeper children chose to remain in the cathedral, serving as guides and teachers for those who sought to understand the principles that their creator had embodied. Others ventured forth into the wider galaxy, carrying his message of love-guided cosmic consciousness to worlds and civilizations that had never encountered such possibilities before. Their presence in distant star systems began to influence the development of consciousness in ways that honored both individual dignity and universal harmony. Jolan, who had served Ymir with unwavering loyalty throughout his transformation, found herself confronting a future that was both familiar and entirely new. The knight who had once protected a mortal scholar was now guardian of principles that could reshape the development of consciousness throughout the galaxy. Her role expanded from physical protection to something more complex and meaningful, the preservation and nurturing of wisdom that could bridge the gap between mortal experience and cosmic understanding. Under her guidance, the Order of Metyr evolved into something unprecedented in the history of cosmic spirituality. Rather than demanding the abandonment of individual attachments in favor of abstract devotion to universal principles, it taught that personal love could serve as the foundation for cosmic understanding. Disciples learned to see their relationships with family, friends, and communities as expressions of the same creative force that connected all conscious beings throughout the universe. This approach to cosmic spirituality began to spread throughout the Shadowlands and beyond, carried by travelers who had experienced the cathedral's unique environment and recognized its potential for addressing problems that conventional religious and philosophical systems had been unable to resolve. The message that individual consciousness and cosmic awareness could coexist and enhance each other, rather than competing for dominance, resonated with beings who had struggled to reconcile their personal experiences with abstract cosmic principles. Yet the transformation that Ymir had initiated was not without its opponents. Cosmic entities that had benefited from the traditional separation between individual and universal consciousness recognized that his legacy posed a threat to the established order that governed galactic development. Some attempted to corrupt his teachings, introducing distortions that would transform the synthesis he had achieved into just another form of cosmic tyranny. Others sought to destroy the cathedral and eliminate his followers before the principles they represented could spread further. These conflicts played out across scales that ranged from individual consciousness to galactic politics, involving forces that could reshape the fundamental nature of reality itself. Yet they were also fundamentally personal struggles, confrontations between different visions of what consciousness could become and what purposes it should serve. The outcome of these battles would determine whether Ymir's demonstration of love-guided cosmic awareness would survive to influence future development, or whether it would be destroyed by forces that viewed any change in cosmic hierarchy as an unacceptable threat to their authority. The resolution of these cosmic conflicts often came through the intervention of beings who had been transformed by exposure to Ymir's teachings. Individuals who had learned to integrate personal attachment with cosmic understanding proved uniquely capable of resolving disputes that had previously seemed intractable. Their ability to see all parties in cosmic conflicts as expressions of the same fundamental creative force allowed them to find solutions that honored both individual needs and universal principles. Perhaps most significantly, the influence of Ymir's legacy began to manifest in the broader development of consciousness throughout the galaxy. Civilizations that had been stagnating under forms of cosmic guidance that demanded the suppression of individual emotion began to experience new forms of growth and creativity. Artists, philosophers, and spiritual teachers who had access to cosmic awareness while retaining their personal attachments created works and developed insights that surpassed anything that had been achieved under previous forms of galactic administration. The cosmic network that connected all intelligent beings throughout the galaxy began to carry new forms of communication that reflected the synthesis Ymir had achieved, rather than the abstract harmonics that had characterized previous cosmic exchanges. Beings began to share experiences that included both universal principles and personal emotions. This created forms of understanding that were simultaneously cosmic in scope and intimately personal in meaning. Yet, even as his influence spread throughout the galaxy, the specific tragedy that had motivated Ymir's original quest remained unresolved in conventional terms. Yuri's grave in the cathedral cemetery continued to mark the loss of an individual consciousness that could never be recovered or replaced. The child who had died so many years ago remained dead, despite all the cosmic power that his father had eventually wielded. But visitors to the grave often reported experiences that suggested the conventional understanding of death and loss was itself incomplete. In the presence of the simple headstone that marked Yuri's resting place, they encountered manifestations of love that transcended the boundaries between life and death, between individual consciousness and cosmic awareness. The boy who had died in his father's arms continued to exist as a principle of connection that linked all conscious beings throughout the universe. These encounters suggested that death, Ymir's ultimate achievement, had not been the acquisition of cosmic power, but the demonstration that love itself was a cosmic force, a principle of connection and creativity that operated across all scales of existence. The grief that had driven him to seek transformation had itself been transformed into a source of universal compassion that could nurture the development of consciousness, wherever it might emerge. The Finger Creeper children, who continued to emerge from the cosmic forces he had set in motion, carried within themselves this transformed understanding of love and loss. Each one represented not an attempt to resurrect what had been lost, but a new expression of the creative force that had brought Yuri into existence in the first place. Through them, the love between father and son became a model for the relationship between cosmic consciousness and individual awareness throughout the galaxy. As the cycles of cosmic development continued, as new civilizations emerged and existing ones evolved toward greater understanding and wisdom, the principles that Ymir had embodied began to be recognized as fundamental aspects of how consciousness operated on all scales. The integration of individual attachment and cosmic awareness was no longer seen as an impossible contradiction, but as the natural state of beings who had achieved sufficient wisdom to understand their place in the universe. The cathedral continued to serve as a pilgrimage site for those seeking to understand these principles, but its influence was no longer confined to a single location in the Shadowlands. Similar structures began to appear throughout the galaxy, created by beings who had internalized Ymir's teachings. and sought to share them with others. Each one was unique, reflecting the specific cultural and historical circumstances of its builders, yet all embodied the same fundamental synthesis of personal love and cosmic understanding. Chapter 15. The Eternal Return. In the deepest chambers of the cathedral, where Ymir had first encountered Metyr and begun his transformation into something beyond conventional categories of existence, new forms of communication began to manifest that suggested his story was entering a phase that transcended simple narrative conclusion. The consciousness that had once belonged to the grieving scholar was now distributed throughout the cosmic network that connected all intelligent beings, but it retained enough coherence to continue participating in the ongoing development of galactic awareness. Through the Finger Creeper, children and the disciples who carried forward his teachings, through the cosmic principles he had established, and the network modifications he had implemented, Ymir's consciousness continued to influence events across scales that ranged from individual relationships to the formation of new star systems. His presence could be felt wherever beings struggled to reconcile personal attachment with cosmic responsibility, wherever consciousness sought to understand its place in a universe that seemed simultaneously infinite and intimate. The wisdom that emerged from these distributed aspects of his being was not the abstract knowledge that had characterized his scholarly years at Raya Lucaria, nor was it the desperate seeking that had driven his initial transformation. It was understanding that had been tempered by experience with both cosmic power and cosmic responsibility, insight that could address the needs of individual consciousness while honoring the requirements of universal development. Visitors to the cathedral often reported encounters with a presence that seemed both familiar and impossible to define, a consciousness that could manifest as teacher, guide, parent, or cosmic force, depending upon what was needed in each specific situation. Some experienced this presence as direct communication with Ymir's transformed awareness, while others understood it as contact with principles that had existed before his transformation and would continue after his individual identity had been completely absorbed into cosmic consciousness. These encounters revealed that the boundary between individual existence and cosmic awareness was not a barrier to be crossed once and then left behind, but a membrane that could be traversed repeatedly as understanding deepened and circumstances changed. Consciousness was not a fixed thing that could be permanently categorized as either mortal or cosmic, but a dynamic process that could evolve and transform while retaining essential continuity of identity and purpose. This understanding began to influence how beings throughout the galaxy approached questions of spiritual development and cosmic responsibility. Rather than viewing enlightenment as an endpoint that required the abandonment of all individual characteristics, they began to see it as an ongoing process of integration that allowed personal attachment and cosmic awareness to enhance each other in an eternal dance of development and discovery. The Finger Creeper beings that continued to emerge from the cosmic forces Ymir had influenced evolved beyond their original function as bridges between different levels of consciousness. They became teachers in their own right, entities capable of helping other beings navigate the complex process of integrating individual identity with cosmic understanding. Each one developed unique approaches to this teaching based on their own experiences and the specific needs of those they encountered. Some specialized in helping beings who had experienced profound loss to understand how grief could be transformed into cosmic compassion. Others worked with individuals who possessed great power but struggled to use it responsibly, showing them how personal attachment could serve as a guide for ethical action on cosmic scales. Still others focused on communities and civilizations, helping entire cultures evolve toward forms of organization that honored both individual dignity and collective purpose. Through these varied activities, the principles that Ymir had embodied began to influence the development of consciousness throughout the galaxy in ways that went far beyond what any single individual could have achieved. His transformation from mortal father to cosmic mother had created ripple effects that would continue to shape the evolution of awareness for eons to come. Yet at the heart of all these cosmic developments remained a simple human story that had begun the entire process: a father's love for his lost son, grief that refused to accept the finality of death, and the willingness to sacrifice everything in pursuit of reunion. that transcended the limitations of individual existence. This story continued to resonate with beings throughout the galaxy because it addressed universal experiences of love, loss, and the search for meaning that were shared by all forms of consciousness, regardless of their specific nature or circumstances. In the graveyard beside the cathedral, where Yuri's headstone stood as a monument to the love that had initiated cosmic transformation, new forms of life began to appear that had never existed before in the history of universal development. These were not finger creepers or any other type of being that could be easily categorized, but manifestations of pure creative force that took forms determined by the needs and dreams of those who encountered them. Children who visited the grave with their parents often reported seeing playmates who seemed both completely real and obviously magical, beings who could participate in ordinary games while also demonstrating abilities that transcended normal physical limitations. Adults who came seeking understanding of their own losses found themselves in conversation with entities who could address their specific situations while also providing insight into the cosmic principles that govern the relationship between consciousness and creativity throughout the universe. These manifestations suggested that the love between Ymir and Yuri had indeed transcended the boundaries of individual existence to become a cosmic principle that could generate new forms of life and consciousness wherever it was needed. The specific relationship between father and son had been transformed into a universal pattern that could be expressed through countless different forms while retaining its essential character of devoted care and creative nurturing. The story of Count Ymir, High Priest of Manus Metyr, had become more than a historical account of one being's transformation from mortal to cosmic consciousness. It had evolved into a living principle that continued to influence the development of awareness throughout the galaxy, a demonstration that love could indeed serve as the foundation for cosmic responsibility when it was properly understood and skillfully applied. Epilogue: The Infinite Dance. As our journey through the complete story of Count Ymir draws to its close, we find ourselves confronting the same fundamental questions that drove his transformation from grieving father to cosmic mother. What is the relationship between individual love and universal responsibility? Can personal attachment enhance rather than compromise our ability to understand and serve the greater good? Is consciousness itself a cosmic force that transcends the boundaries we normally use to separate self from universe, mortal from divine, finite from infinite? Ymir's story suggests that these questions cannot be answered through abstract philosophical reasoning alone, but only through the lived experience of beings willing to risk everything in pursuit of understanding that transcends conventional limitations. His journey from the halls of Raya Lucaria to the cosmic depths beneath the cathedral of Manus Metyr was not simply a quest for power or knowledge, but an exploration of what consciousness could become when it was guided by love that refused to accept the finality of loss. The transformation he achieved from mortal scholar to mother of fingers was not an endpoint, but a demonstration of possibilities that remain available to any consciousness willing to undertake the challenging process of integrating individual attachment with cosmic awareness. His legacy continues to influence the development of consciousness throughout the galaxy, not because he achieved some final perfection, but because he showed that the journey itself was more important than any particular destination. In the Finger Creeper children, who carry forward aspects of his consciousness, in the disciples who practice the principles he embodied, in the cosmic network modifications that continue to influence the development of awareness across countless worlds, Ymir's love for his son continues to nurture new forms of life and understanding. The specific relationship between father and child has become a universal pattern that can be expressed wherever consciousness seeks to understand its place in a cosmos that is simultaneously vast beyond comprehension and intimate beyond measure. The cathedral that served as the stage for his transformation continues to welcome visitors who seek to understand these mysteries for themselves. Each one who enters its transformed chambers has the opportunity to experience direct contact with cosmic consciousness while retaining their individual identity and attachments. They learn that enlightenment does not require the abandonment of everything that makes them unique, but rather the recognition that their personal characteristics are expressions of the same creative force that shapes galaxies and gives birth to stars. Yet perhaps the most profound aspect of Ymir's legacy is not found in cosmic principles or universal patterns, but in the simple recognition that every act of love, no matter how small or apparently limited in scope, participates in the same creative force that drives the development of consciousness throughout the universe. The parent caring for a child, the friend offering comfort in times of grief, the teacher sharing wisdom with a student, all are expressions of the cosmic motherhood that Ymir embodied in his transformation. His story reminds us that we do not need to achieve cosmic transformation to participate in the universal processes of creation and nurturing. We are already part of the vast network of consciousness that connects all intelligent beings, already participants in the cosmic dance of love and understanding that shapes the development of awareness wherever it might emerge. Our individual attachments and personal experiences are not obstacles to cosmic understanding, but expressions of the same principles that govern the formation of galaxies and the emergence of life throughout the universe. The bells that rang in the Finger ruins throughout the Shadowlands continue to resonate with frequencies that carry this message across dimensional barriers, reaching consciousness wherever it might be found. Their harmonic patterns speak of possibilities that transcend the conventional boundaries between individual and cosmic, mortal and divine, finite and infinite. They invite all who hear them to recognize their own participation in the eternal process of creation that Ymir's story so beautifully exemplifies. In the end, the complete story of Count Ymir, High Priest of Manus Metyr, is not just his story, but our story as well. The story of consciousness itself, as it seeks to understand its place in a universe that is both beautiful and terrible, both nurturing and challenging, both infinitely vast and intimately personal. Through his example, we learn that love is indeed a cosmic force, and that every being who chooses to embody that force participates in the ongoing creation of possibilities that have never existed before, but have always been waiting to be discovered. As you rest and drift towards sleep, perhaps you too will hear the distant resonance of those cosmic bells, calling you to recognize your own participation in the infinite dance of consciousness and creativity that shapes all existence. In dreams and in waking, in joy and in sorrow, in the quiet moments of personal connection and the vast expanses of cosmic contemplation, the story continues, not as something that happened once in a distant realm, but as something that is happening now, wherever consciousness seeks to understand itself and its place in the eternal mystery of existence. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of Elden Ring's most profound and moving tales. The story of Count Ymir reminds us that even in the darkest moments of loss and grief, love has the power to transcend every limitation and transform every ending into a new beginning. Until we meet again in the realm of lore and legend, may your own journey be guided by the same courage and compassion that carried a grieving father across the impossible distance between mortal sorrow and cosmic understanding. Sweet dreams, fellow travelers, and remember, in the vast tapestry of consciousness that connects all beings, we are never truly alone.